Welcome back, everybody, to the NECC. Match 1 of the day is over, but match 2 is ready and about to begin. My name's Infernosis, joined here by the ever so close, just the same Mick. We're excited to bring in the Hoosiers facing off against Fisher Tea Party for our second and final matchup here today on broadcast.
Yeah, a little bit of a later matchup, obviously schedule switch-ups going around, but even then, just because of that situation and the circumstances given to us, we want these games to be that much better, and that's why we're laying out these teams that we got here tonight specifically. Between the Hoosiers and the Fisher, I mean, obviously Fisher, they're a program that, I mean, we know nationwide. They're really climbing the ranks. They obviously have had themselves a little bit of a cover here in the past couple of years. It's not even their primary roster, their secondary roster, you name it, they probably got it here. They've been building something over there, and honestly, I'm excited to see it at least here tonight.
Yeah, they have a lot of precedent. They even made it so I think their blue roster, Fisher Blue, made it through in Red Bull Campus Clutch. They're going to the LAN down in DreamHack. So, yeah. I mean, they have their program that's very high accoladed, right? They have a very good roster, very good, program in general, and it's something to keep an eye out. But the Hoosiers are also building up something, and they've already proven that something so far here in the NECC this season. Fisher Tea Party are coming to this one 0-1. They did have a reschedule in week 1. They still need to play that one out against Harrisburg, but the Hoosiers have taken a loss, and they've also managed to put their name on the board for at least one win. So they're the team that are coming into this one with more expectations on the shoulders, considering they already have themselves a victory and are looking to go 2-1 heading into the next week if they close this one out here successfully. But speaking of that, let's go ahead and take a look at the rosters to see who's specifically playing, and we can highlight the individuals a little bit more as is deserved. For the Hoosiers, it's Druff, B Smooth, Enjoy, Opted, and Simba. And while some people would say, hey, you got to be biased towards Fisher and Infernosis, you know quite a few players there and most of the people who run the program. No, Druff, they are a criminal justice major, and they were top 50 in H1Z1 when they were 15 years old. I loved that game, and I was a criminal justice major, so I'm a little bit biased towards Druff and only Druff. So put some Druff love in chat.
Well, I mean, it Druff is at the top of the leaderboard, and I need to decide. I feel like that may set a little bit of a bias towards an entire team. We don't know. We're not going to go ahead and set that precedent. We're going to look on the other side as well, because we got to keep things as even as possible with the likes of Fisher Tea Party. You got Copy, Muda, KM Lord, Ponage, and then Fraggin. I'm just going to go with that. That first name, not going to chalk it up, not going to even worry about it.
Reese.
Fraggin. If he's Fraggin, who cares about what the first name is? Last name, I like a shaken, not stirred. So, Fisher Tea Party, obviously, you mentioned already that even then the Hoosiers have a little bit of expectations. They have more expectations coming into this. Well, they also have a little bit more practice because they, I mean, as you mentioned, have that extra matchup, had that extra game under their belt, and have themselves that win, better yet, in terms of their actual record to work with. So, it's not just a matter of how are you going to be kind of planning things out. Knowing that Indiana, they are the Hoosiers. You don't really have any kind of an alleviation of the name there. That's obviously their primary roster against Fisher's secondary roster. And even then, Indiana, they have a little bit more practice under their wing knowing that. But Fisher, they have an expectation knowing that that's their program. Their primary roster is going off and doing great things. They have an outstanding set of guys to go ahead and just scrim against on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think that's actually Fisher's 13th roster. They're like the new Houston of old, Dallas, where Houston used to step in. They had 9 rosters. They always make a joke about it. Now I think they only have 2 rosters, but Fisher's coming in. They've got 4 or 5 rosters. So I actually don't know which roster Fisher Tea Party is, but we do know for a fact, like you said, they aren't the main roster. That's the important part. They have another team at the university, which is the great part about having a large university, not just an A and a B team for a program, but even more above and beyond. That's even more teams that have different play styles, different agent selections, different map selections that you can really work against. A lot of the weaknesses I mentioned when you've got 2 teams on the same program. I mentioned this just last week with you, or I guess the week prior now here at Dallas when we did another gig. When you've got an A and a B team, they tend to work against each other. Maybe those strategies don't work elsewhere. They get a little bit too into that, intercollegiate rivalry between the teams. Hopefully that doesn't happen to a lot of programs, but for Fisher, they don't have to worry about that because they got 4 other teams they can face off against. It really diversifies their portfolio, which is very important when it comes to esports because no 2 teams play the same, and you don't want to practice like that is the case. Speaking of maps, though, guesstimations or actual maps to go forward, what do you think we have here on the chopping block with a Scent Split and who else but Haven on the board?
I mean, obviously, just kind of the triple dosage that we were really expecting. Split being that one deviation from what we're typically used to seeing. I mean, Split now being kind of back in the map pool. I can't really say that no one has been around for half the year of the competitive season here previously, but it still feels fresh in the mind because not very many teams select it in that regard. You see it all the time in Tier 1, Tier 2, but it seems like this collegiate scene, they like to kind of stir away from it. They like to stay towards those 3 sites and like to be heavy in those, obviously, that we've seen here recently. Ascent just kind of going there off the gates on the get-go. I'm excited to see that just because of the trends that we've seen of these teams. Typically, the team that likes to pick it is the one that usually likes to lose it as well. So I'm hoping Fisher can kind of go ahead and prove us wrong in that regard. But Sunset and Breeze being those first 2 initial bans, I'm excited to see that just kind of go ahead and stir it up a little bit because it shows that there's a lot to be changed, a lot to be adjusted towards in that map of Breeze, knowing it's now back in the pool. A lot of changes have been made. Not very many teams have really gotten acclimated towards these changes yet, so they still got a lot of time under their hands. And even then, Sunset, I think it's going to stay in that spot maybe for the rest of the year because I can tell you every team I've talked to, they cannot stand that map, and I don't think anybody really understands it yet, but once the team finally hits that stride, man, I'm going to be ecstatic to watch that matchup.
Absolutely. Since the map where pro wrestlers would go into a boxing fight against, I don't know, collegiate boxer that's, you know, a D1 division athlete, right? It's obviously not their forte, right? It means that a wrestler can go in where they specialize on groundwork, they're the better person there, but everyone can play that map. Everyone has the same base value, which means that boxer can, you know, upset you. They can throw something the other way. They can catch you off guard. They'll hit you with a haymaker you're not expecting in the UFC, right? It's very different. And that's why a lot of times you'll see the first map, like on Ascent like we have here, maybe go 13-10 or, you know, just a close scoreline in the first place. And then the second map is complete blowover that ends 13-2. It's because Ascent is always just going to be that #1 default maps for most teams. It is the gentleman agreement map, and it's where you're going to see good teams go to die, or at the very least be tested the most. You see that everywhere. It doesn't matter what esport it is. You'll see it in CS for Mirage. You'll see it in R6 for like Clubhouse or Oregon. You'll see it. I won't say anything about Rocket League because they're all the same. But the expectation is that there's a map that is a default for everybody, and everyone can play on it. Even a semi-pro against a pro, it's probably going to be at least closer than you would imagine it would be. But second map's going to be the difference maker, like you said, for Split. That one is the one that I'm actually really shocked about seeing. Haven, whatever. It's third map. They've got to get to that third map in the first place for even to be a point of contention. But Split is the big difference maker. And I'm honestly shocked to see it get picked up over a map like Breeze, which we saw last week here for the NECC, and actually went very well for both sides. A very close matchup that did go to OT, just 1 round short of max OT, but did go to OT. Or something like, I don't know, bring a little bit of the old as well. Any other map. Split's the shocker that comes out to me. You got Lotus on the board, you got Sunset. That one I'm not shocked to advance instantaneously. Just something a little different from Split, which is, even when it was brought in initially, Dallas was not heavily played here.
Yeah, and even, I mean, Lotus kind of found its stride, though. I mean, you're noticing these collision teams are starting to like these triple maps a little bit more so. And I mean, knowing that Haven is kind of being a little bit more down-patted and knowing it's been there since kind of the conception of Valorant, we're not seeing teams really deviate from that too much. But speaking of deviations, we're not really seeing that either in terms of the agent selection. We're looking at a mirror composition across the board because, well, when you see the KO and the Sova, that's going to be your double down in terms of information. Knowing this map, information is the #1 thing you can really play off of. There is no rock, paper, scissors. It just comes down to who knows a little bit more. And better yet, who can make those adjustments faster, or better yet, who can just understand them. Because in this game of information, you come from R6, you understand the critical aspect that it is. I mean, it is a fundamental aspect. It's a variable that you have to get under wraps and really just solidify at the start of every single round. And when you have that many resources on your back end that can give that to you, it can really give you the space to set up everything else. So I think honestly it just comes down to the kills. How well are these players going to hit their shots, and are their crosshair placements warmed up? Because I hope that Aim Labs is treating them well here soon.
Yeah, the big thing about R6 is every attacker starts with 2 drones, and you use those religiously. They're the single most important piece of utility in the entire game. And on Valorant, you don't get that same luxury. Not every single agent gets 2 drones to check out a site. You get 1 or 2 agents on your team at any given time that have any sort of information gathering potential. And the big one here for both sides is going to come down to that Sova with the Owl Drone and the Recon Dart. So you have 2 pieces of utility that can gather a lot of information. KO, who's fallen off quite a bit on the map of Ascent, shockingly enough here, Dallas. We haven't seen him as often recently. Yeah, the KO 0 point gets a lot of information for that suppress. That's why it was so heavily utilized on the map of Ascent. It was also a great count out of Chambers, who were really meta way back when, and when KO started to step up into the woodworks, you had to counter the Chamber with the KO. People said, oh wait, KO is actually kind of good, we should just use them anyways, even if Chambers no longer played. So that doesn't stop the problems that plague around one potential, which is the pistols that come out in full force, and who else but Draw Druff, CJ Major burying 4 players in this single round. Somebody bring out the body bags, and it still is a win for the Hoosiers off the back of that 4K spree. Fisher Tea Party got to side, got plant down though, and that's some extra credits they'll be plenty happy with.
I mean, those credits is really the only thing you're celebrating in terms of this round. I mean, sure, you don't find yourself the pick, but I mean, you got to look at Druff specifically, who's now already more than halfway towards that progression for a lockdown in that 3rd round. So, I mean, that's going to be massive carrying things over, knowing that even then you have another player to get that defuse off to get not off the back of that frag. I mean, there's going to be a lot of things you can look forward towards here in this 3rd round if you really do keep this thing underway, because knowing that Spectre Buy is going to be coming through, you're going to go for that full armor off the back of it. Honestly, if you're looking at Fisher Tea Party, you're splitting the map here. You're looking for a default. You're looking for something you can already see that kind of split across the map, saying we hit B. We don't want to give those ticks over towards KJ for that lockdown in round 3. So let's hit the other side of the map. Let's figure out what this default looks like. Let's see whether we get any pressure towards the middle of the map. Let's get an idea of what this team likes to play and kind of, you know, utilize that to our advantage. But as we're seeing so far, this A aggression is trying to go through with that 2-2 split, kind of with a little bit more emphasis towards the middle of the map. You're not going to see too many frags out the back of this, but if you at least see 2, I think they have a chance.
0 Point goes around the corner. Just trying to gather out any information. Should be a player over towards Puppy, maybe in towards Tree Door as well. Fortunately, I don't think it gathers the information they thought was most pertinent at that point in time. A slight shimmy forward for your Jet. They get away from that one scot-free. And speaking of it, Optic, 2 in a row, hunting for a 3rd over towards the opening of B main. Gets pressed by their doppelganger of Mueda, but unfortunately for the Hoosier side, those first bloods go punished ever so slightly, but it is still so in favor of the Hoosiers. Enjoy with a 2K of their own, make it a 3. Druff and Opted, and Enjoy even joining in after the fact. 4 kills for Druff, 3 for Opted and Enjoy. Simba and Beast Smooth haven't gotten the luxury of putting their name on the board yet, but that is a lot of ult pips for very important agents on their team. They're getting so quickly charged early. That's going to be punishing for Fisher Tea Party. Yeah,
compared to the likes, I mean, when you look at the Hunter's Fury and that From the Shadows, that one, teams would say without a doubt that's your most useless. I would like to argue that, but we're not really going to get into that. But yeah, there's a lot of potential for it, but it's very difficult to find when you're in the moment and when you're in these kinds of scenarios and just kind of looking to see where it could actually have that placement. But speaking of placements, we're putting Vandals and Phantoms in the hands of these players on the attacking side. Looking to see if they can finally go ahead and create something here, find themselves an opportunity, and then bring it towards that A side. Knowing they found a little bit more pressure, knowing they found that site control, they're going to just nail it down, having those guns to work with, only for an exchange of 1 player and maybe a little bit more, but you only got 2 players to really set that in.
Door will be switched, cutting off the majority of Tree and Garden in the first place for the Hoosier side to retake. Druff will clear away Door fairly quickly, but that's going to give Fisher Tea Party a lot of time to reevaluate their defensive position. They'll pivot 1 player in towards Hell. The second one was opting to go close to it. That's KM Lord just hovering on the other side of Generator. It's Reese to find the first blood though, taking down Druff here in this post-plant scenario, and leaves only Beast Smooth all by their lonesome. And I do not think this is a round recoverable, but this is where the Hoosiers realize that, and they'll play quite smart. Beast Smooth back towards A lobby, lines 1 up with an Ares. A second one goes in the line of the site. They have to push the individual. They'll punish them nonetheless, but that's 2 very important rifles, very important kills they would have liked to have stay on their team, fall into the wayside, and the credits are going to be very mismatched here going into round 4, where Hoosiers, after their dominant round 1 and 2 performance, gonna have really no problems, it feels like, heading into this round and keeping those credits to their advantage and having everyone with rifles and Odin or whatever the heck they want to bring to the table.
Yeah, knowing everything's starting to even out here on the board, I mean, you still see a little bit of a buy coming through from the likes of Fisher Tea Party. You're not really freaking out too much in the regards of what your team is bringing to the table. It's more so what kind of adjustments are you going to make, and even then, what have you discovered so far, and how are you going to play off the back of that? Knowing already towards A side, you found yourself some pretty successful hits there, but how are you going to make that and really follow through and find some round successes, knowing that obviously, if you know A site works for you, the Hoosiers are going to have that same exact idea. They're going to know you're looking for that early pressure, finding those initial fights and trying to get those early picks. But honestly, it's just not working out for them this time. Already with an opening pick on the side of the Hoosiers, they make sure to lock that thing down. They find the middle of the map to work out favorable for them as well with the tailwind, just giving them scot-free in terms of that kill. In a 5v3 scenario, and you haven't even touched the site yet, is looking pretty dire here for Fisher. But I mean, so long as your Jet can find an opportunity, you can still at least scratch something.
Keep in mind, the Hoosiers realize they have a gun advantage. They know what Fisher Tea Party brought in the last round. They know what they did. 3 out of the 5 players off the board. They're going to be very mismatched for rifles. They're going to play the range to their advantage. And the moment they see another player engaging them back with a rifle or something like a bulldog, anything with that firepower at distance, they're going to try to fall back. They're not going to over-aggress for that kill. They're not going to over-peek and extend where they don't really have the best situation to do so. And for the Fisher Tea Party, they realize their mistakes. That's 2 players they would have rather not lost. Yes, you get the Hunter's Fear charged up off that death, and KO gets a little bit closer to their ultimate as well, that you have nothing else to work with, and they'll opt to save up. I'm a little curious why they wouldn't just send one more player into the void, so they didn't really bring full rifles for everybody in the first place. Maybe they've collected something that somebody else was forcing up with no armor. It's hard to tell. They're going to be heading into this next round, still somewhat pressed for eco, and the Hoosiers plenty happy with this result. No plant, no player dead, all rifles will stay maintained, and they can start to overpeak now in the final few moments. They have 2 seconds to do so and punish another one, but it'll be a rightful Fisher Tea Party rotate back, and they'll hold strong. And the Hoosiers keep padding up the eco economy.
Yeah, just go ahead, play it slow in the back of the map, trying to go ahead and take a little bit of the time out here with actually having to invest that time for your team to press that button in the game and make sure to put everything on a freeze to let Fisher Tea Party kind of know what's going on and give the Hoosiers the idea of, okay, let's go ahead and talk in our own regard. These guys are probably just holding their angles, kind of being concerned whether that spike's going to go down. Meanwhile, Fisher's saying, let's take this moment to figure things out and kind of figure out where we're finding this space and what we can kind of capitalize off the top of that. Because, well, their attacking side hasn't really been the hottest so far, but maybe they can find a little bit of success so long as they at least get themselves an initial frag. And that's what it really comes down to. They're initiators. They're splitting them across the map. They're looking for these initial picks towards A and the B side. You want to be splitting a site and the middle of the map. But instead, they're going for a full push, all 5 men coming out towards this B side of the area and smooth this wedding with an Odin. So I think it's going to go ahead and just knock you down.
That's a huge round for B Smooth and Druff. Make matters worse, you popped the null command for the side of Fisher Tea Party. Mueda thought they were going hot and heavy towards site. Unfortunately, it's cut short very quickly. An ice cold affair. The Hoosiers only lose 1 player. It's Enjoy. They didn't have too much to be concerned about. And honestly, that loss, they're probably not that angry about it. Guess what they're heading into in this next round, round 6? An operator. They'll extend the credits. They didn't come in with that much last round anyways. The team is at such an advantage, has been taking advantage of the mistakes Fisher Tea Party are making, punishing them in round 3 despite the loss. They're going to say, hey, maybe the operator comes out a little bit sooner than expected. You expect it's round 7, round 8, round 9. Get a couple rounds of success off of it. And honestly, with how well the Hoosiers have been doing, only seeing it now in round 6 is probably the biggest shocker to my mind.
I mean, what's really shocking me personally is just kind of this layout of the board of what we're seeing so far. Everybody's pitching in their own regard. Your KJ's getting kills on the defensive end, which is absolutely perfect. Your Jet isn't really out of the game. They're just kind of being a little bit slow to warm up because they don't have the operator. Now that they do, that's an initial pick on the board. And even then, everybody that needs to be doing something else, even if they're not doing that exactly and finding the frags necessary, they're still doing their job. Your Omen at the bottom of the board, taking the 0-1, 5 assists off the back of that. KO, being that fragger, being that initiator, being that backup duelist, being inside of these engagements and winning those fights, or at least being a catalyst to setting up the success that's there. I mean, the Hoosiers are really just nailing this game down, and they know that they have control of it, so they just like to push that towards spawn if they can, and they do that successfully, knowing that Sheriffs are only the thing inside the hands of these Fisher players.
They know they're in an eco, so they start to pivot in for control of the map, but they're not doing so like you'd expect through B lobby into attacker spawn in a really long and convoluted flank. They're going very straightforward inside courtyard. The team that vies for courtyard control really early typically finds a lot of success off the back of it. A sense a little bit less so than old Split, where mid control ultimately was the decider for victory for an attacking team. He who controlled mid controlled the game. But it is still very important because courtyard is so quick for the pivot over from B to A. It's very hard to deny that one from bottom mid, where we saw Enjoy just last round, which is why I'm going to harp on the control that Enjoy garnered from that position towards Pizza. They get owl joned out, they get 0 pointed, which was a great play from Fisher Tea Party. It meant that Enjoy was trapped towards Pizza and could not tailwind back over towards Market. But what did Fisher Tea Party fail to do? Push out to punish Enjoy. One player went and lost their life. That's expected in a operator battle. Where was the rest of the team? Dead, waiting inside courtyard, kind of like we see here, except it's towards arches. 2 players off for both sides. Enjoy and getting themselves 2 kills out of that before falling, and the Hoosiers are forced to use some ultimates here to keep them back, and it's B Smooth's Hunter's Fury to take down Ponage.
Well, you can safely say that it was at least invested. Sometimes we do see a lot of these players just kind of throw those Hunter's Furies out with kind of no real backup or information off the back of it, and making sure to find that value. But you already found that kill, you found a little bit of damage off the back end as well, so you are getting some absolute follow-up just again and again and again in this domino effect that we're just seeing take place here. With the lockdown being invested as well to kind of go ahead and buy out a little bit of time, you already have so much space in the back of sight that it's not really going to make too much of an impact to close out another round here for the Hoosiers. So already guaranteeing themselves 6 on the board, holding on to every single weapon, and you can see that even then Be Smooth is accumulating more and more money, who's probably going to be just going ahead and buying up for themselves, and knowing that next round you could be sitting on max, just really doing absolutely nothing at all still. It's just baffling to say the least, knowing that Fisher, they have been just scrapping things together, looking for any opportunity, even around like this where you could say, usually you'll say, hey, it's a full buy, we can, you know, get something together. They're still just scrapping things by with half armors just to manage somewhat of an actual utility belt to work with.
You see those clips of somebody sliding down a ladder inside something like Dark Souls? You know, they just go really fast. It's like the faster you're getting down, instead of going one rung at a time. Fisher Tea Party, unfortunately, try to go down one rung at a time, and now they're sliding out of control further and further. It's turned less into a ladder and more like a slip and slide. They are starting to get things spiraling out of control, and while they're doing everything they can to get friction, get some sort of bias going their way, it's all falling apart. Last round was the best shot they've given it. 2 kills early, but Enjoy gets away with 2 of their own. One with a great classic flick over towards that cloudburst and then right back over towards Arches. That was a huge nail in the coffin of Fisher Tea Party's push. Losing that duelist, losing your secondary entry in after the fact to follow up behind it, it put them in a really bad spot and dampened a lot of that potential. Then comes the Hunter's Fury, and you said it. A lot of teams don't use those ultimates. We hate seeing that as casters. It's use it or lose it territory, a lot like the timeout Fisher Tea Party just started. If it's available to you, make use of it. The Hoosiers do, quite early as well, might I add. They've had these ultimates for a little while, but they've been waiting for the right time, and Be Smooth picks a perfect opportunity to do so. After they lost the secondary player to after Enjoy, they make use of it, they get success, and now they're going to start playing very aggressive. Enjoy moves in, no sniper in hand, might as well go in with the rifle, good for one, but it's a one and done scenario.
Yeah, just looking at the early space, already able to go ahead and capitalize off the back of it, knowing you're investing that kind of backup duelist, quote unquote, in that KO, looking for kind of whatever you can, really. You still have the Sova, you still have the Jet, you still have that kind of traditional style of an approach onto a site that you would typically see it kind of out of the earlier days, and just kind of your vanilla setup, I would say. But regardless, you can still kind of create something here. Problem is, you still have so much large weaponry just kind of lurking around the map, and you already have an inkling of an idea of where it's all coming from. You know an operator's kind of sitting around the middle. An Odin is more than likely towards that B site. So where do you go? Over towards A, because KJ's been setting up B. That's where you messed up, because they switched things up knowing that gun's there, knowing that Sova can just hold it down by himself, so why not allocate that utility somewhere else where it can really feel the weight and give Druff the opportunity to find these kills.
1 for 1 though, same problem we had earlier inside Courtyard. Finally Fisher Tea Party to get the go-ahead frag to put themselves in a man advantage, but their Jet is down to a sliver of HP, and it's not the next to fall. Reese goes down. Great shot from Simba. Still holding. The barrel's been spotted, and Ponage will take down their doppelganger. Just Be Smooth. The Odin is in hand, something they have been very spectacular with so far here in this series. There goes the recon bolt over the top. Shock dart to deny. 9 seconds left. Red time ticking ever slowly in their favor as Ponage feels forced to put this down and does that pressure. Be Smooth denies the plant and denies the round in Fisher T's favor. It is a 7-1 onslaught coming out from the Hoosiers. They are not looking anywhere near a stoppable force.
I mean, it's just doing your job there, quite frankly. Just getting that damage down, knowing that even if you're not going to find the kill in the meantime, you make sure to go ahead and at least get as much damage off as possible. I mean, that shock dart doesn't make that play possible. It doesn't make that entire round possible to win out. Knowing how the time was working, knowing how the spike was going to be working, because you know that double players are going to be swinging out on you if they have the help pull for it. But knowing they're both kind of deprived of that, you don't have a Sage, you don't have a Sky, every single bit of that is going to be final. So when you call it a number from one of your teammates, you know that that's what you're working with no matter what. So are the Odin going ahead, early spray through. You hear it. You don't even have to hear it or see it to know it's going to be there. You can just go ahead and kind of assume, and it's going to work out for you. A little bit of a trade to come through as well, and even then a lot of pressure out of that Blade Storm. But man, this is looking like a great setup for Fisher. If there's a round to do it, this has to be it, quite frankly.
Suppress steps up big with that Blade Storm. Aweda picking up some of the slack elsewhere off screen. That was a great use of the From the Shadows. We highlighted it's typically considered the weakest ultimate for a lineup of agent selection in general for the map of Ascent. There are right times to make use of it. Fisher Tea Party have done an exceptional job of showcasing that here. Frag will go out. Fisher Tea Party going to send out a 0 point of their own. Both players left unspotted. No, Enjoy gets away for just a moment with it. They'll now be concerned that Walkway will be getting pressured from Hoosiers. And it is looking like a double-pronged push. One from Walk, one from Stairs. But they haven't decided to engage just yet. Lockdown will be utilized. Droff has not pushed it out here just yet, but they'll have to do so here. Pushed in from both. Almost finds all three. But saved the Fisher Tea Party are by Moeda. A big round, essentially an eco for them. And the Hoosiers will acquiesce their first round loss since round 3. They need to hold on to that lead. They're at least guaranteed positive, Dallas, but they can get a lot closer than Comfort.
Yeah, I mean, sure, it's just a singular hero play, but hopefully that cape provides enough warp for everybody to at least kind of get these shots on for another round or two, because that's what you're looking for. Obviously, we talk about that bare minimum of 3, but I think, quite frankly, with the kind of stage of the game that we're in, with the buy that's available right now, and knowing how the rounds are going to kind of pan out, even worst case situation, you have 2 more opportunities for rounds. So you can find 4 here pretty comfortably, so long as you just don't lose it on too many first bloods without kind of exchanging something there. The KO's fine on the null command, but knowing that you lose a second player in the meantime, that can't happen. The resurrection does come through. You have a 4-on-4, but Omen is really tagged up. This is very doable, knowing that Druff is just kind of in a corner holding things out. I talked about the damage to be done by teammates, and quite frankly, once again, Indiana's just doing their job better in that regard.
Game Lord, a slow swing up towards Stairwell on B side. They have Spike there. Why is there no attempt to plant this down? They're wasting so much potential time. The minute's still on the clock. They could have forced the defense of the Hoosiers to rotate back in towards site, and instead they gave them plenty of time to do so. Eventually it does go down though, and the time constraints are forcing the lapse of the defense to retake their own objective. Ponage in the back of Boathouse. Firefight essentially with Opted first and foremost. They both are an even HP, but Ponage still wins out that gunfight. Beast Move will drop in towards side. Headshots KM Lord, but KM Lord as the more proper rifle gets the kill first and foremost. And it's now a 1v1, Doppelganger and Doppelganger, Omen on Omen. And the low HP of Ponage could be their undoing, hiding within the dark cover. Simba waiting for the time, and they'll pounce straight through. 7-2 will no longer last as the Hoosiers will take control of that site. Imagine if Fisher Tea Party had planted that just a second and a half sooner. That wasted time comes back to bite them.
I mean, just when you think there's not enough things you can really go ahead and give credit to these Hoosier players on. Once again, another thing to just add to that belt, another accolade to just kind of go ahead and pride yourself on is going to be that timing. You know exactly when to tap it. Even if you do hold that thing down, it is so close that a player really can't go ahead and imagine the timer and how that thing's ticking down and know whether or not you need to peek or not. Because honestly, you swing there, you still have enough time to go ahead and close things out. You don't know for whether or not it's reached a half, and even then, whether or not it's going to be at that threshold where it's not enough to even get that reset off. But knowing how close it is, you just hear fast ticking. You know it's already doubled down in terms of tempo, and you just need to check that thing to see if you can just lock it off and play for that time there. So Fisher, they're hanging on by a string, but maybe they can find something if you don't have 2 players getting caught off immediately by an operator.
That's a really good spot for Enjoy. They're a big fan of golf. Highlighted as being a golfer. No shock they're using the operator, holding one shot in one. It's the best thing you can possibly get. Why not utilize it in your favorite video game just the same? They do get a refrag back, but it is not towards Enjoy. It's towards the KO of the Hoosier side instead. Opted has been a very fantastical force for the Hoosiers, but they no longer have access to that kit, the 0 point, or anything else like that fragment in this round to work with, but the same thing will be said for Fisher Tea Party. No information, bar the KJ, and that information is a bit too retroactive, needs to be placed and forgotten, and I don't think we'll see the Hoosiers vie for control down in Courtyard. Elsewhere, they'll take Firefight straight on from the get-go. Enjoy, 3rd kill here in this round, needs to pick up the pace. Struff may be ousted, but their nice Nano Swarm clears out and gets their own avenging kill, martyrdom of sorts, and it is only Reese all by their lonesome, tagged by that paranoia. A slow swing around the corner, but just the one, could have been the 2. Simba to secure.
I mean, you're just seeing them waiting out for utility, knowing that nobody's really going to push anything. Get overzealous here on the side of Fisher Tea Party. I mean, the game didn't even really play as kind of an even playing field once we kind of got a quarter way through this entire match. If we do see the full entire thing start to unfold, it comes more so down to the fact that we saw Hoosiers get an early lead, and Fisher gave them every single inch of respect inside of this game, and you're seeing that really start to pan out in front of you. I mean, if this is a 10-2, you can't really put it on Hoosier for being amazing in every regard, knowing that Fisher Tea Party have the capability. They have found rounds that it feels like they just kind of squeak by. They have the potential to do it, but because they're giving so much over to the Hoosiers, that's why they can't find it. So already, you got to look at these kind of ultimates that you're working with right now. The lockdown, the Hunter's Fury. Fisher can create this space. They can create that time. They can stall things out. They can find blood, but they can't trade off anything for it so long as it comes down to that first kill, and it's already gone away. That ultimate is gone, and it comes out of Hunter's Fury with no real information once again being thrown out, just grasping for straws.
Honestly, the Hunter's Fury worked very well against Enjoy, purely because it blocked line of sight to opponents that was swinging in. It doesn't seem to matter, though. Hoosiers, with 2 players moving in from Attic and still the 1 player in from Tree distracting of Enjoy, they bury the final few remaining players for the Fisher Tea Party, and they're going to need to find a new boat to swim, because right now they look like a fish out of water. It is a bad scoreline to look, 10-2. You've highlighted it, the way the game has been going. You still want to see a 3 split. You want to get at least those 3, but it's getting harder and harder to come back from that. And now you're looking at a 10-2. We got to pray this isn't like 2 years ago, Dallas, where Houston and Hawaii were only good on one side over the other. And that was typically attack was their best suite, and the Hoosiers just showed everybody defense is an unstoppable force. And now they get to replicate that, hopefully on the attack.
It's just another one of those scenarios, man, where, I talked about it earlier. Sure, you look at the attacks and you defense. The entire percentages of kind of the sides of how these players work on each side of the field. But the biggest thing I'm taking away right now is looking at the score by the end of the half and the trend of who chose this map. It just, like, once again, it seems like it's not a curse, it's a trend, it's a statistic, and it's working out once again. It's kind of showing how things play. You're choosing out these maps, you're hoping to really even the odds off the back of this, and knowing the Hoosiers, this isn't being their map pick, and they have split it coming up right after this. If they get to that map faster, they're still going to have a heck of a lot more energy to really kind of bark at you for it. So you need to make sure if you're Fisher, you win off this pistol round, and you're finding yourself a good start with all that damage being done, because you're replicating what Hoosiers was really nailing down that last one.
Aldrone into the bottom side of mid. And Optid's putting a lot of control over towards Market. Looks to be a pretty primed push in towards the B side for the Hoosiers side. But considering Spike is in bottom mid and being flanked so heavily by the Omen of Fisher Tea Party, this could go awry. How do they not see? The smoke goes down just in time, but it doesn't stop the hard push coming through from the Hoosiers. That'll be suppressed, doing it by their lonesome. Good for 2 with the Sheriff. Optid drop, and Optid once again forced to come up clutch on the attack. Plant was teased for just nary a moment. It seems like there'll be a quick play in around the opposing side. Slow move in from the Omen. Optid takes care of their doppelganger, and Simba does the exact same thing. And the Hoosiers will take themselves in positive for the first round of the second half. And that may be all she wrote. You lose the second, you're at a 12-2 scoreline. That's match point in our first map of the day. I think you have to buy in round 2 here, Dallas.
You most definitely have to. Even then, kind of sitting at a 10-2 off the back of that. If you look at a 9-3, maybe even then some teams already contemplate there, but 11-2, you're kind of required at this point, knowing how things are working out for you. But, they want to kind of cash in on that last-ditch effort and see if they can get themselves some rifles, maybe some Guardians to work with in the next one and still find themselves a full kit to play with. By all means, be my guest. But right here, right now, honestly, you just got to make this thing really expensive. But already Hoosiers doing it once again, finding the way to start things off, and that Phantom and Vandal, these forces are looking a lot more impactful inside the Hoosiers once more.
Suppress working slowly. There's really not much you can do. You completely spotted out. Classic around the corner. Be Smooth was a little bit slow in that one, not very smooth with the aim, and Fisher Tea Party will give up that round. Look at the credits they've got coming into this one. What can you do? Buy as much as possible, but the Hoosiers have so many rounds of buffer, Dallas. 10 rounds between these two rosters. They can force up, they can drop every weapon they want for the next 8 rounds and still feel comfortable that the Fisher Tea Party will make one mistake on their defense, extend a bit too far, fall back the other way. Ultimate catches them off guard with a lockdown. Bladestorm gets 1 too many kills. Anything the Hoosiers would bring to the table in Fisher Tea Party, they make that slight mistake. It'll be a huge mar in their record as they'll take the loss here in the first map. The Hoosiers, though, on the attack. Defaulting fairly interesting. 2 players to A main, 2 players in through courtyard, seemingly through walkway, and 1 testing the limits on B side, wanting to keep those 2 players defending there, locked in and waiting. But Enjoy moves in too swiftly. Ponage gets the first blood, and that will rotate the Sova, who was initially on B, over towards defender spawn, who can quickly play to either objective, so they'll have at least the advantage to play from.
Yeah, already underway, looking for something to work with here. I mean, knowing the Fisher Tea Party, this is going to be the start they need, and I mean, it could be the start of something beautiful. Or it could just go ahead and kind of just elongate this game a little bit more so, because, man, this match of stamina, knowing, I mean, how these series work, third map would just be looking pretty darn good right now. But if you can go ahead and shut things down and even find yourself a first, that'd be miraculous, and it'd be the most impressive thing I've ever seen out of this squad. So it all starts right here, right now, but it's kind of going ahead and getting some dents put into it by the side of Hoosiers with that Sova pushing all the way back into your spawn. So a little bit of a lurkable game that we'll say that's underway right now, but you finally get that shutdown, you finally get that spike control, and it's still 1v2 though.
It's 23 seconds left. I mean, that's plenty of time for Simba to isolate these individuals in a 1v1. They'll throw a dark cover over towards Market. They want to make sure Mueda is the target to worry about, but Mueda, great frag on the prior kill and another successful one on to Simba. That is a standout player that you were really needing on this roster. It's just been a little unfortunate that Mueda hasn't been heating up on the scoreboard in any of the rounds previously. 6 and 13. They were 4 and 13 prior to those final 2 kills. Fisher Tea Party are going to really hope that these bottom fragging individuals, who their utility role is their primary purpose, but can step up come map 2, which is split, and I think arguably is a good spot for those utility players to come into their own on that kill board feed and really punish individuals that overextend, which the Hoosiers have been doing, but at least they're doing it patiently.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing it in strides here. I mean, they're just not really walking. They're not really sprinting, not even jogging. They're just kind of striding along, kind of feeling themselves. And you can really tell just by the way they're playing out this game. They're hitting their shots. They're just kind of shutting things down. And finally, once you feel like they're kind of getting this point of comfortability, they know that it's match point at this time. We can go ahead and press the W key eventually. We can give it our best shot because we got plenty of leeway and a massive safety net just to give something a try. So already, it's looking pretty darn good. It's surmounted down to a 1v1 with the Vandal to work with and Simba being in the scenario to shut this thing down if possible. But you got to make sure to get that shot off. You go ahead and look at that nook and cranny out the side of your smoke. You see that nobody's there, but you know that somebody's possibly on catwalk regardless, and that spike being tapped, you know where it's coming from. You know a player's around there, but you just have to win this 50-50, and you nail it. Just because, well, the team's expecting you to. The scoreline shows it, so you just keep that level of consistency rolling along.
I told you, they could buy up nearly every single round. They could force as much as they wanted to. They had the buffer rounds to give away to Acquiesce the other side, but they didn't want to give away too many, right? They still wanted to take that win fairly swiftly and get a move on over to Act 2, and that was the case. 13-3, that is an abhorrently large gap on a map like Ascent. I went on this huge spiel before the game started, Dallas. Usually Ascent's really close, even if the two teams feel imbalanced, and then map 2 comes along and it's a blowout. That's something that commonly occurs. Where was that stat line? Sometimes as a caster, you're happy when things you say come true. I'm honestly a little saddened by that one here. Fisher Tea Party just fall the wayside, and now have to pray that map 2 will turn out any differently. And I said it, they were the more tested team when it came down to the Hoosiers. 2-1 victory against Blinn, a 1-2 loss previously. They were at least putting maps on the board. They were being tested. They were facing complications. They went 1-for-1, and they look prepped to go 2-for-1 heading into next week.
Yeah, knowing that even then, I mean, right now, they can go 2-for-0 in terms of this map count, so long as they just kind of keep this thing rolling along. I mentioned it, stamina, race, strides, it carries over not only just from round to round, but from map to map, and knowing that even then that last one wasn't your selection, that's usually one of the big detriments that comes down to starting on Ascent, and especially being the team that chooses it, thinking you're going to find yourself a leg up. You need these specialty maps. I always say it, I always tell these teams that Ascent, as well as you think you know it, you just don't. I mean, it doesn't take you as a caster to talk about how close these games always are. It doesn't take any time for me, quite frankly. You just look at the scrims, you look at the results, and you say, look, that was a good match. You're not here for a good match. You're here to win. And you need to find those. You need to find the rock to your scissors. You need to find the paper to the rock. You got to find these counters. You got to find these things that you know cover all your angles and really kind of go ahead and just cover up some blemishes, I'd say, to where when you go into a map 2, that's where things start to reveal, but you at least keep it close.
There's 8 maps in a pool. It's not enough to know half of them very well. You need to know 5. You need to know 6 out of those 8 maps, because you only get 1 to 2 bans, sometimes 3, depending on how wide that pool tends to be in differing leagues or games. You need to make sure that you always can play a map that comes up, that even if there's a map that gets picked up by the opposing side that you don't know, you're going to win it 2-1 still no matter what in that best of 3. And it gets even worse, Dallas, when it comes down to best of 5s. And if you're a team that really is hunting for grand finals, you're hunting for a best of 5. You're not going to feel happy with just a 2-1 throughout the season. You want to make sure you're getting to those 5s and getting into those big matches and winning the big matches and not tossing it right at the very end and feeling the unfortunate bear of that loss when it mattered the most. Either way, we're going to jump over to map 2 after a quick break. Make sure you guys don't go anywhere. Can this be closed out in 2-0? Where Fisher Tea Party has something to say about it. Welcome back, everybody. The NECC map 1 has already concluded on the map of Ascent in a dominating 13-3 in favor of the Indiana Hoosiers. And Fisher Tea Party will now have to pray that our second map of Splint, which is up and coming, will be their best chance to get things onto a third map of Haven.
Yeah, I mean, already looking at a roadblock, one that's kind of self-imposed, knowing that, I mean, expecting to kind of get yourself on a little bit of a trip afterwards and realizing that it's a traffic jam caused by the likes of the Hoosiers, already just shutting you down on that last map. I mean, there's just so much here that's kind of slowing you down as a squad, but it's something you have to kind of put behind you, obviously. Something you can't really concern yourself with. A lot the idea, the execution may not be there on the side of Fisher, but, I mean, obviously they have themselves some ideas to work with, but problem is, on Ascent, you got an entire arsenal of canvas ideas. No one, I mean, the map has been in the game so long. Every single scrimmage, every single practice, every single ranked game, it feels like it takes place on that map. So you're always going to have something cooking. If only you could have that same level of comfort on every single map. That's the ideal scenario. That's in a perfect world. But going into Split, this is a map that, I mean, even when you look at the kinds of bans, a lot of teams like to go ahead and just kind of get out of the way. And I mean, props to Fisher for not kind of getting it out of the pool, but they had bigger priorities. They had bigger fish to fry. They had to take care of Breeze. They had to take care of Sunset and know those were out of the way. And this is just kind of the unfortunate hang you're being dealt as an aftermath. So I think Split, it's been the game for a while, hasn't really received any big changes. So, I mean, you know what's going on here. You know it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I hope you've been watching your VCT here recently because I got to say, they like their map over there. They like their Split to work with. And, I mean, there's a lot of notes to be taken, quite frankly. It's a fun map to watch. It's a great map to analyze, but it's very hard to execute on.
Yeah, I mean, had a lot of geographical changes when it got brought back into the pool, but it was nothing substantial. But those changes were enough that the old school strategies comboed with the new agents that had been released since it was first in the pool changed the map up entirely. And new strategies need to be built, need to be watched, and need to be reviewed. A joke every week. It's what was that called? It is trickle down stratonomics from the pro scene down to T2 to amateur to collegiate, whatever order you want to call it into. You got to watch to learn. You got to view to envision. And that's very important for collegiate teams, especially if you want to pick up this map going second. If this is your map pick, I have to feel like you have a lot of confidence going into this one, but the same thing could have been said going into map 1. Everyone should have had confidence going into Ascent, and obviously just didn't turn out that way for the other. For Split, though, agent selection is going to be very important. It is a very rough map to go in on the attack. A lot of teams will just slaughter in through it, and defense is like, holy cow, what is going on? What is happening? Then it flips back the other way, and it's a complete reversal, and it's a big question mark, and you see one lopsided half over the other half, and it's whether it's a ranked match or a competitive match, it seemingly is different for which side it is that dominates, but it doesn't matter. I want to see an even half at halftime. I want to see it go straight to the bones. I want to see it 13-10. I want to see it 13-11. I want to see this map get really close.
Yeah, I at least want to see rounds kind of be contentious here. I want to see kind of some mix-ups. I want to see some more thrifties. I want to see some kind of slower rounds to kind of see some things stirring together rather than just kind of going in and looking for this pressure. Ascent feels like that big map to where it's obviously just kind of, there's a big wall sitting in the middle, and you're playing the opposite of tug of war. You're playing push of war. You want to go ahead and kind of create the control and push as far as back, and knowing that the more hands that are on deck, the easier it is to do that. And even then, the more spread out you are, the more you're kind of getting that force not as centralized. You're kind of spreading it out evenly, and everybody's weight is being bared evenly. Knowing, though, here on Split, and it's not just kind of a lateral thing. It's not just kind of point A to point B right across the plains. It's an uphill battle, literally. This map is very vertical. You're seeing a lot of things that you're having to look up and down for. And on that defense, you're already holding these angles. You already know what's kind of coming their way. That's why when you talk about the agent select, that's why Raze is such a critical pick here. Yeah. And obviously going to be a requirement, I feel, just to kind of start things off. That's one that we're going to see no matter what. But everything else is a little bit of a follow-up. is going to be that mix-up of saying, what could happen here? We see Astros being brought into this map. We see Vipers being brought into this map. Those are replacements that can take care of each other, or they could be a little bit of a foundation to something else that you're kind of building into. We may even see somewhat of a Chamber who's had a bit of a resurgence here recently coming as a curveball. That could also be the reason we saw KO on that last map, as you mentioned, because of the resurgence of Chamber, and you're always trying to create that safety net saying, I mean, he's not a bad pick. He's usable in almost every scenario. He may not be the best in everything, but he's a Dollar Tree Swiss Army knife, and he can at least get the job done at the end of the day. So knowing that Split is a very more kind of precarious map, you're having to check these mid presences, sure, not as much of a scent, but knowing that even then your approaches on the site are very narrow and really choke you up, I'm looking to see if we kind of get some slower stratonomics, as you mentioned, and seeing a little bit of an EMEA approach to this, because the way the Europeans play this map is very slow, and it usually works out for them, surprisingly enough.
Especially when you consider, I love you highlighting the fact that you don't have to look at mid presence anymore as much as you do now Ascent. That used to not be the case. These used to be the map where on the attack, if you won mid, you won the round. Almost 90% of the time. There's some VCT stinger that popped up one time. The attacking team that won middle, that won down an alley, won the round at the end of the day 87% of the time or something like that. It was a ridiculously high statistic, a huge anomaly, and one of the big reasons why they wanted to change up Split in the first place was to help alleviate a lot of the concern that came in from mid and winning that on the attacking side. There's a reason why Sage was the must pick agent on this map, to use that wall, to force a fatal funnel in mid, to force an engagement at your leisure on the defense, and it's no longer a go-to pick. It's no longer a have-to-have agent on your roster, and I think that's much better for the overall pacing of the game, and I think it really fits into the EMEA strategy like you talked about, it going very slow, trickling in, getting those picks, playing smart, and not over-aggressing too soon, which both teams did a little bit of on Ascent, but we also saw some very good defaults coming out on the attack that came from Fisher Tea Party. They just lost on the trickle in. They lost the fights pressuring. They didn't find the safe space they were hoping for, and that slow, inevitable loss of player count of that advantage you have in terms of new numbers to your side makes it nearly impossible to win out these rounds. So for Fisher Tea Party, less of a concern here early, because the first half they're starting off here on defense.
Yeah, just looking for some early starts here. And even then, one thing I kind of want to go ahead and bring some attention to is the likes of Fisher Tea Party and their composition from the likes of the Hoosiers. Hoosiers, as I mentioned, Astra, Viper, they can kind of play as replacements for each other, or they can go ahead and just kind of play as a little bit of a catalyst for one another. And already you're seeing the Hoosiers kind of play into that. I love these double controller setups. I love the kind of potentials it can create. And you already see it kind of going ahead and working its magic, as you can go ahead and just completely clear the middle of the map, squeeze your way through, and the defense has absolutely no idea. Sure, they have a little bit of an idea, just kind of considering that they want to match you up, but that was an option they decided to take. That was pressure they wanted to put there, and they could switch on a win whenever they want.
Notice as well the tempo from the Hoosiers. It's mid control, really heavy, forcing back Fisher Tea Party, but not overextending. You can see they were really trying to force that Astra utility to work in their favor, to force the player up inside of heaven away. They use it as a great way to escape in through ropes and over towards tower to the A site. Ponage and Suppress find a kill apiece, joining in with the roster that have already managed to find one elsewhere. The Hoosiers are at their wits' end for success, and that's where Reese and Suppress find the final two that are needed to secure themselves a victory in round one, which is the first victory that Fisher Tea Party have faced in a pistol round so far here in this series. Hoping that this is maybe a sign of better things to come, but the Hoosiers losing that round is a little unfortunate, to say the very least. Not much that your utility can do when you don't have much utility when you're really rocking in with an Astra and a Viper. You also see that on Pearl a lot, Lotus occasionally, Breeze very much so, and Bind was one that was teased for a while, but I think Icebox kind of took the cake for those two.
The wild thing to me is how the Hoosiers didn't even really kind of capitalize off that and just kind of turn tail and go towards that A site. You already knew that kind of around the map, they were pushing some pressure up towards B. They lost the initial player. They kind of looked away, but even then, knowing that it just didn't work out for them is a little bit conflicting, to say the least. But knowing they found themselves an initial frag, that could be gun picked up. Problem is, as I mentioned, the narrowness of this map really doesn't allow too much free open space for you. So, I mean, a gun will be great here, don't get me wrong, but when it's only really like a Ghost or maybe a Marshall, you got to get one of those Spectres to really find some results, knowing how close quarters this map is.
Well, that's going to come off the huge rush that'll need to come forward out from heaven onto the B side if they choose to engage there. It's actually a play that came from ropes all the way in from A main. Be Smooth takes down Ponage. That's a Spectre they were hoping for, but up above in rafters, Moeda's lying in wait. Thankfully, the Hoosiers had not pivoted to take that A site. The pressure, though, in towards Garage. You baited out your primary player, and it cost so much damage to the Hoosiers side. Pray the regrowth is online, and Opted, while planting down the spike, will need to help Simba back up to full HP, but they're isolated. Suppress holds the cutoff. Opted at the maximum peak of that range to get Simba back up to full HP, and it may be just enough. Opted will rotate around tower, trying to peek as best they can. Simba removes Moeda from the equation, though Suppress gets the Bulldog kill. The timing could be there. Suppress still sticking. Simba sprint in. Time not on your side. It will not matter. The Bulldog strikes fast, and the clutch will come forward. Fisher Tea Party take round 2, but at what cost? Nearly everything.
Exactly. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. On the back of a round like that, I mean, you still have to go ahead and give props to the Hoosiers. Better, you got to give a lot of credit to the likes of Fisher for kind of rebounding. Getting this pistol round, that's a necessity. You got to start off strong. You got to shut off that momentum. You got to slow things down a little bit so you can go ahead and start to kind of collect yourself in this matchup. But knowing that even then, going and continuing things on, finding yourself that second round, knowing that it had to be a clutch scenario, seeing how Hoosiers is kind of holding that thing down, knowing they're getting this money accumulated a bit by bit by bit with that extra plant money that they get on the attacking side. There are advantages that are welling up. There are a lot of holes in the ship that develop just being on the defending side of the map that you have to go ahead and plug immediately. Otherwise, things just start to leak at such a drastic pace. So already, good start to go with to find yourself that first initial blood. You did the damage. That's a gun to be picked up eventually. But as it stands right now, everybody's going to hold on to their stations and figure out where this push is coming through from.
Honestly, feels a little antiquated right now from the Hoosier side of really putting so much control still towards mid. I'd highlighted it's no longer the end-all be-all on the attack. It definitely does help, but it doesn't feel like when the Hoosiers get mid control, which has happened every single round, they've not used it to its full advantage. They've only rotated to the A side, and when they try to go towards B, they just went through Garage instead. They didn't make use of that huge play in through mid, and it just feels like a very short-lived success. Druff on site was paranoid. Ponage was in a really weird spot there, but managed still to get that kill needed. Druff, despite having 16 HP, is at least good for one more. KM Lord lying around that corner. 89 HP and a little bit of a dream. The headshots light up, and what a round for Fisher Tea Party. They look like a completely new team. Smirk coming into the second map of Splits, and they need to be because they just lost 13-3, and they've already met the same tally on the map of Split.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bounce back you needed, quite frankly. Not only just in terms of these maps, as I mentioned, but even in the rounds, more importantly. The economy's working out to your favor here. Sure, you're seeing a little bit of a kind of a sacrifice on the likes of Suppress, but you're not really concerned about that. There is a showstopper to work with, so that player can stay alive. Quite frankly, they don't even need the gun to play with. They can just go ahead and kind of work off that ultimate, maybe look for some pressure, get some teammates to kind of give you that chariot into that spawn to find that tick to go ahead and just get that to work with and play for the retake. But I mean, it's an eco round, so you're not stressing about it in the slightest. You know that you're going to more than likely win this round. You're cashing in on that because if you can find a 4-0 start, we're seeing that pressure. We're seeing a lead. We're seeing a better score difference and score tally, as you mentioned, for the likes of Fisher Tea Party than they got in the entirety of the last map. So, I mean, things can start early, and all it does is comes down to a little bit of the sprout. Comes with a seed. What can it grow into? Well, we just got to give it time and find out.
Huge amount of losses for the Hoosiers side and inside of middle. This is a really bad spot to be in. Spikes and leftover there just the same. Alley is a near impossible route to come back from. They did manage to pick up one more over towards tower. Ownage with the judge. Enjoy will have to swing this carefully. It will not matter. No life will survive the onslaught of shrapnel heading your way. And Be Smooth will take the slowest rotate they can back the other way. Limited utility, limited credits. The Hoosiers are just at their wits' end. It looks like a 4-0 start for Fisher Tea Party. They're already about to break the amount of rounds they gained for themselves on the first map of the day. And that was the one we thought things would be ever so close on. Fisher Tea Party look like a new roster. Check them PC, this not normal, whatever the copy pasta may be. They look so much better on trigger discipline and crosshair placement alone, Dallas, than they ever did on the map of Ascent.
I mean, yeah, it just comes down really to the start. I mean, the pistol round and the one afterwards, you can go ahead and kind of brush over to the side, just kind of we can do in the same regard when it came around to Ascent. Knowing the pistol round, that just comes down to outswitting, outsmarting, where you can really find these kind of squeaky kills. knowing that force on the one afterwards. I mean, you're going to have a pretty massive gun advantage, so you can kind of go ahead and sleep on that. But the two afterwards, that's where we've seen Fisher really start to shine. Sure, that third round was a little bit of a hero play, but you couldn't care less so long as you found the results and you found that round to work with, because that saved your economy, that saved your score line, that's keeping things flawless in the manner to keep things just kind of go ahead and chugging along in this matchup. So sitting into 4-row start, guns to work with once again, pockets starting to swell up, you're creating not only just a lead for yourself, but a safety net just in case things start to fall through. But quite frankly, I don't see Fisher doing that anytime soon unless it starts on this round.
The plan from Garage still being tested and teased by the Hoosiers side. I like this round's pacing already, Dallas, because no one's in mid. No one is testing the waters down in alley. Well, actually, as soon as you say that, the KJ for their side starts to go that way. But at least no one more than one is doing that. That was a big problem previously. Guardian in hand for Opted. Now let's get rid of KM Lord, but Suppress sends the showstopper out and does give up control towards tower, meaning this could be claimed free land for the Hoosiers side to pivot in from. If it wasn't for the fact their own toxic screen cuts them off from the angle, they'll rotate through rope, move in through alley. This is where your KJ has been working towards, but the rotate from Fisher Tea Party, they know everything. They're already out on site. They're deep to contest. Druff will remove Suppress, trying to work in from that initial flank. One player down towards alley, but Be Smooth, such a good flick, takes down Moeda and leaves just two players left for Fisher Tea Party. Spike having gone down. What can be done? A near miracle required. Ponage will pivot back. Are they going to play this round for an actual hold and an actual take, or are they just going to pick up weapons and save? That's the case. They're falling back. They want to talk things through. This round over. The Hoosiers, the victor.
I mean, it's a good call. Don't give any ult ticks over unnecessarily. You don't really know what's going on in terms of this retake because you haven't been put in this situation too much just yet. So what can you really do? How can you play this round out? We don't know. And, well, if it happens again, we need to at least be prepared for it. So let's go ahead and try and go ahead, figure things out, make sure to lock it down and put us in a pair of shoes, or say we don't even get there in the first place again because we just kind of locked this game down and look much better going forward. But still, the Hoosiers find themselves some good pressure. The Viper found a little bit of an actual deviation of attention towards that A site, so you know that already that Viper's doing that job, because this map typically feels like a 4v4. I've heard teams, I've heard coaches, I mean, colleges kind of talking to each other and in their practices saying, look, your job as a Viper in this map is just to be an absolute pain. Be as annoying as possible. That's usually the job of a controller, but here, you're doing it solo, not just on the defense like you would see on Icebox towards that B site. You're seeing it here on the A site guaranteed every single round. So, are they going to go for a hit? Or are they just going to have that one player there, going ahead and creating noise, constantly just putting that pressure over there, making you think something's going to happen? You never quite know, and when you find the initial blood, that's when things really start to come out from it. But, I mean, if you found yourself one round, how many more can it find? Because you can't rely on that forever.
Druff's got an angle of dominance. The dark cover goes out, and that's right when Moeda will swing. They're going to look to deny this ult pit for as long as possible, and while they are trying to test the limits of what Fisher Tea Party are capable of, they don't want to give up that blood by overextending their welcome inside Garage. So they'll send a couple players back over towards mid, send out a guiding light, another dark cover to close off Mail, and the two players working from there strongly, this could be a good chance to take down that Raze sitting inside Mailroom, especially with that information. Down goes Suppress, the blind from Ponage, and Opted will secure the much needed frag. Just Moeda on site, body shots galore, Simba to secure, and Fisher Tea Party left with two players all by their lonesome, both the players defending that A side. They'll be left with a lot of questions. What went so wrong on B when everything's gone so right on A? They'll both move in from the defensive side, one up towards heaven. That's KM Lord, or should I say was. Beast move with the frag, and just Reese. And at 1v5, pressured by two. Good for it as Opted and Speed move. Beast Smooth go down. What a great flick coming out from Reese, but they know it's an impossible task, and they'll fall back. And another good call from Fisher Tea Party to save what they can and just play for the next round.
Just go ahead, scrap it together so we can kind of go ahead and manage it in the meantime. I mean, you've already made sure that you have done an outstanding effort just out of those 2 kills regardless. Making sure it's not a flawless round, because, man, that's a bragging point over and over again that, I mean, we could have brought up for the rest of this matchup, quite frankly. Just knowing that, saying, okay, who's just waking up and in a flawless manner. I mean, that's something that could have rung out for the rest of this entire game, as it kind of would have been that, you know, that nail in the coffin that we really see that's probably the shiniest. But knowing that you can kind of shut that down, rust it up a little, just make it kind of blended with everything else. You don't want to even be there in the first place, but knowing that you kind of cut things down and make it look doable is all good and dandy. So knowing the Fisher Tea Party, still, these defensive holds are looking great. You have a lot of resources to work with this time. I think, honestly, the Blade Storm, that will be whipped out from the shadows, so a little bit more conflicting, but not really finding too much, as you've already just kind of pushed in and haven't found a lot off of it, until, well, Ponage is there as a backup. Great couple kills off the back of that ship.
Druff, secure, suppress, and it is only one player remaining, and I wouldn't be shocked if there's another angle where they just say, okay, save. This Fisher Tea Party been playing very quiet in these last few rounds. It's given Hoosiers the leeway, the comfortability to just fall back. And despite the fact they used the Cosmic Divide on that A site, to great use, may I add, they're still going to go over to the B site instead and go for that plant. And from the looks of things, Reese, who has plenty of eco considering the saving they've been doing the prior few rounds, will in fact contend here for this kill. It didn't last, but they will in fact go for it. Something Fisher Tea Party have not opted to do. And I don't think it's going to matter that much. The eco is going to start padding up from the losers bonus. They'll put up rifles, but not all armor, and utility will be another big question for them, especially when they just used the Blade Storm last round to save as many credits as they could. The ultimates aren't exactly there, the Showstopper nor the Blade Storm, to save some currency.
And you're saving the lockdown more times than not. I mean, it depends on really where you're going in the map. I mean, it plays out a lot better for a stall when you're in those kind of post-plant scenarios, but kind of attacking on this map and utilizing it is always a little bit questionable. You can't really find those areas of the map where it covers the entire site unless you're on the entire site. So it's just a little bit more awkward, I'd say, the best to really use in the meantime. But no one, and speaking of awkward, as soon as the Viper Cloud goes down, last thing I want to see is 3 players just immediately waiting for me there. But that's the case you get. That's what you got to work with, and you find yourself at least something off the back of it, knowing you've equalized these teams, but still, you got site control for the Hoosiers, but Fisher, man, they just check these angles, get ready for these trades, you can get something done.
As soon as the camera switches away, it seems like no one's checking their corners. Opted will refract, suppress, great play in from the flank over towards long. Over towards ramp, I should mention, more specifically. It's just Ponage now all by their lonesome. They'll send out a dark cover over towards Spike that will force the player in the back of sight to maybe think about the idea that Ponage is tapping the defuse. That does not seem to be the case. Opted in a very bad spot. Guiding ladder on the corner. They're full flashed, and though Opted took a test of their eyesight, they'll still manage to maintain their vision. And the Hoosiers will manage to tie things up 4-4. Where'd that prowess from Fisher go? Seemingly just fizzled out. The crosshair placement has stayed strong, but Hoosiers are actually using their utility to create space and pivot into the openings.
I mean, yeah, once again, keep in mind, I mean, the majority of this game is going to be these rifle on rifle kind of rounds, and already, I mean, those 2 rounds, we could just talk about it in regards to that. It is a 2v4. Fisher part is down in terms of rounds in these full buy rounds across the board. So knowing that they're not really able to play it out once the full utility is there, once the full kit is there to work off of, once you had these ultimates all kind of rotating amongst each other, knowing the ecos are kind of being brought out, you can finally get a little bit of a wild card to work with these Buckies to say aggression can work, but at what cost? You're pushed up the middle of the map, but you're going to see that pressure just go ahead and squeeze over and overfill into the other halves of the map, as that Bucky isn't going to find any results, and the Sheriff will barely find anything as well.
It's a bit of a slow pushover from Fisher Tea Party to rotate into that A site to hold on, but the great thing about it is they don't necessarily need to. They'll reclaim the ground that the Hoosiers had so many difficulties getting through and collect those rifles and pray they can take a couple more players off the board. They're good for one, but unfortunately, it was a really great spot from the Hoosiers. One player up in towards tower was going to play in from rafters, one back a site, and another one sitting inside the Viper's pit. Too many angles to secure from. Needed to be some alleviation of that mindset. Another player pivoting in through tower, isolating a 1v1, then playing in, dropping towards back of elbow, something different. They put too much emphasis on those rifles, which they technically needed to do, and it forfeits the round in favor for the Hoosier side. Now up 5-4. They are continuing a dominant spree. We mentioned we wanted to see a much closer first half, and we are definitely seeing it. It is anyone's game, despite Fisher Tea Party looking infinitely better than they did on map 1.
I mean, yeah, that's why you see the kind of scoreline sitting already where it is. They're able to go ahead and kind of keep some relevancy in this game. Look at it early on. We're not already saying, this is looking pretty unfortunate. It's looking pretty bad here for the side of Fisher. We're able to say, look, they're kind of keeping themselves together. They're playing this out. They're making sure it's back and forth, and that's what we were hoping for coming into this map. But it really comes down to, will that be consistent? Will that stay here? Will you have that same effect in the second half? Because things are starting to wind down here in the first. You've already found a first blood here for Fisher. You need to make sure to find at least one more round, I'd say, just to kind of not worry about that 2-round differential and kind of buff it out in the pistol.
Shots being sprung up from mid. What a flick from Opted!
Oh my god.
With the flank from Moeda, deals with one towards the B side. Suppresses Paint Shell with revenge in a martyrdom fashion. And somehow the Hoosiers, despite Opted's hero play inside of mid, is now only equaled them into a 2v2. Flash around the corner, Spike going down, but enjoy! What a shot to take down KM Lord! Just Reese able to take down the KJ opposing. Back of B side, they spot them and the spray goes good! What a shot! Reese secures for Fisher Tea Party. They'll collect the operator for their woes. They spent so much to get it in the first place, might as well keep one going into the next round, and they'll tie things up 5-5. Oh my goodness, we are 2 rounds away from the second half, and it is very possible we see Fisher Tea Party go positive here, doubling at least their tally they had from map 1.
Well, quite frankly, you get a hold on that operator because, well, that was really the only thing you were carrying over, quite frankly. Considering the money in a lot of these players' pockets and it just not really being there and ample, you need to have something. You got to have a cannon of some kind, and just hoping that it'll find that opener for you, or at least put that pressure on one of these lanes on the map to kind of cut things down and create a chokehold for these Phantoms to kind of really start to excel a lot more so. But already, as you mentioned, that 5-5, and even then just kind of looking at the board, these 2 ultimates, also things to play off of. Knowing that, I mean, honestly, this could, without a doubt, be an advantageous position for Fisher Tea Party, so long as they capitalize off of it. I think you can make the investment here, so long as you get the guns off the board, find the initial pick, pop the ultimates, just to kind of go ahead and lock it down. You can get yourself that 6-5 and then just kind of fall asleep at the wheel in the next one, because you need to make sure that if you can guarantee yourself an even half, this defense should really start to pan a lot more fluently.
Opted working in from mailroom. Has a little assistance from the flank, and they'll have to have somebody over towards market do the same. But that's a lot of control now garnered towards that B side, and we have very slow rotate for 2 out of the 5 players for the Hoosiers to get away from that A site and more towards B. But it may just line them up for a player towards ropes. You know, the sky for the side of Fisher Tea Party is lying in wait. They'll fall back towards defender spawn, down through ropes, and work back the same, because the fights on B side have fallen on the waist side of the Indiana Hoosiers. A 4 versus 3. All 3 players coming from defender spawn. 2 players in from alley. 1 will likely move from the side of tower and up towards staircase into heaven. That's where the danger will lie. Lockdown will go down for the defense of Fisher Tea Party, forcing them up in towards heaven. Simba can lock down KM Lord. That will be the case. The guiding light way too slow for the taking. Now Spike down in the open, placed for heaven. I think they just knew. The Hoosiers knew what was going to go down. They haven't seen the lockdown utilized. It's got to be used here. And it plays perfectly to their strengths. A 6-5 stat line, and the Hoosiers are going to be facing off against a low eco team of Fisher Tea Party heading into the last round of this half.
That operator being really the only thing you were carrying over. I hope we would kind of have that effect. Use the lockdown to kind of go ahead and say, look, maybe this could be that instigator, be really what kind of keeps things going here for the round. It just doesn't have that effect that you want. And, well, as a trade-off, what do you get? You get 2 other ultimates cut up on the side of the Hoosiers, because that last round was the one where they didn't have, quite frankly, any at all going into it. So that was your time to strike. Now here, things are just going to get more and more and more difficult, not only just in terms of the ultimates, as I just mentioned, but even then, already the money and the guns. You're seeing what could be thrifty in the making on this round. And with that judge already going ahead and getting sniffed out, that's a lot of your potential already out the window.
Suppress will pivot away. Has great assistance, though, on site. Considering how heavily the Hoosiers have been pressuring towards B, laying 3 players in this side, not too shocking to see them build up this way. What is shocking is the fact that Opted, who lost their Tasmanian Tiger inside mid towards ropes, still picks the player that just took it out without having the extended vision within the Tiger to see that. It's very aggressive. It's a little lopsided, and it costs them a lot. A player they did not wish to lose. Suppress, Showstopper gets them 1 big kill. They have one player towards ropes, but Druff may not know that they're up and above. They'll see them, and Suppress will pay the price. Be Smooth from ropes takes down Merweda inside Mail, and what seemed like a great chance for Fisher Tea Party to find a foot to stand on to tie things 6-6 has now fallen so far the other way. And Loris has a weapon. Sight is theirs for the taking, and the Hoosiers can position so well for this post plant inside default plant.
Longball letting you know what's going on here. Already another player going ahead and trying to meet you. You already hit that turret to give yourself the information. Know that player was moving in the middle of the map. This is just a roundabout here. Go ahead, have a KJ watch that. Try to go ahead and play off the contact and try to play for the trades here. And even then, that's the perfect angle you can take to make those fights work. But it just comes down to the shots. Can you nail them? And unfortunately, Fraggin is just one short of really making some magic there. So with the end of the half coming underway and a 7-5 scoreline for the Hoosiers, this is their map selection. You were expecting to have that lead, not only just based off that fact alone, but more so because of the momentum that we saw in that last map where they just won by a dominant factor of 13-3. But, I mean, they definitely slowed down, but they've kept their form is what the most important thing comes down to, because you consider those 2 rounds, as I mentioned, that was the pistol, which is going to have to once again come in clutch here for Fisher Tea Party just to equalize the score. I mean, if you're looking for it, everything afterwards, that's where the problems start to surmise, because Fisher Tea Party on these rifle rounds were really struggling to just kind of find a game plan and see if it worked.
Was Jet doing the Gundam style right there?
No clue.
Never seen those before. Thank you, Bowman. Be Smooth working in after the paint shell does a little bit of damage after them. They just want to make sure they have a presence inside tower. 2 coming up from ramp side into the tower side of A. That's not actually where the majority of Fisher Tea Party are trying to prowl in from. 3 players elsewhere. 2 working in towards alley, and 1 in towards garage. Garage, as noted, there's a huge absence of players in the back of sight. They're all up inside heaven, where 4 of the Fisher Tea Party side are pressuring in from now. Spike laying at the bottom of streets just the same. Be Smooth! What a shocker of a shot to take down Moeda. They're feeling the same pressure barreling towards them. They'll fall back safely. This is where Simba and Opted can move in quickly, but Ponage scrapes the kill by just a bit too fast. Opted, too slow to assist that one. Can't find a second either. And KM Lord will pivot that spike from mid down to A, and the spike goes down. Fisher Tea Party on the attack, showing what's right. Suppressed with a 2-fer. Leaving up some space though. Hoosiers have to find kills. Suppresses with a 3K. Hunting for a 4th, though Druff will deny it. 69 HP in a dream as Ponage lies in wait and strikes just in time. You'd expect them on site. It's not just faults. But Ponage plays it perfectly back in through tower.
Yeah, looking to play for those trades there, just kind of working off those numbers, letting yourself count down, but so long as you have some kind of merit behind it. So well played there from Fisher Tea Party. Once again, you're looking for these pistol rounds. You're looking to go ahead and create the equilibrium. Off the back of that, you're going to see these rifles being bought up, or at least a couple, to say, okay, this makes this round not only in this regard, but the next one to be done. And if we can find that third to really just kind of hammer things in, you could be the first to hit 10, quite frankly. Better yet, you could hit 11 first if things really start to go underway in terms of the economy. But on the attacking side of the map, you can really set the tone there, knowing that the spike has to go down. You can get that extra money in your pockets to work with. But Hoosiers, looking for the setups, seeing what kind of defaults reveal themselves. You know players are going to be peeking out towards the middle of the map. You know somebody's going to be over towards A, just trying to figure out what's going on over there. But you know, well, where one of those rifles are. That's what it comes down to. You know where the second one is. You know where both of them are. You don't know if that's all of them, but a Bulldog and a Phantom have been revealed, and you're saying the rest of them are probably going to be Spectres.
Be Smooth has a lot of assistance from Opted. Keep in mind, ropes was changed quite a bit. Opted's hiding away in the actual angle that was widened ever so slightly and also thinned in the internal. Joy's going to prowl in towards Mail. No one's on site, though. They're going to opt for control with that Sheriff at range. No, it's a classic. Druff is holding B main garage exit with a classic. Thankfully, Enjoy is nearby towards Mail. Like I mentioned, the Sheriff will come out in full force to net the first blood of this round in favor for the Indiana Hoosiers. They'll have to play strong, though, as it is 4 players still on site with proper weapons, and Spike having gone down. They'll even up the man count. Ponage denies the flank from B Smooth with that Bulldog. 2 players will come in on that side, and it's a lopsided affair. Ponage with a double 2-fer. Kolak down in garage, and the securing kill goes for the Fisher Tea Party side. They dominated that round. Hoosiers don't get any real benefit to it like they had in the second round last half, and it will tie things up 7-7.
Yeah, huge. Just holding on to as much as possible there. I mean, 4 players alive. Sure, you could ask for 5, but quite frankly, you couldn't care less knowing that you've equalized things out, and you have so much to carry over to the next one that even then, Fraggin has gone ahead and opted to buy a Phantom in their own regard and say, honestly, we just don't even worry about that one player that's dropped. Let's make sure to knock things down, put these Hoosiers in their place, and show that on the defense that you sit tight and you wait for us to come to you and win these rounds over and over again. You're looking for success, you're looking for consistency, and I think they can honestly, quite frankly, find both of it, knowing that this lineup has worked so much, and they have the double duelist, which just kind of plays in their favor here, already finding a first frag off of it.
Opted. Works in down ramp, spots and isolates one, and while Reese could have been there for the denial, Enjoy is a great crossfire angle from deeper towards side and rafters and can rotate back down to pick up a weapon to work with past that point. Joy gets taken down from Wada though. The backside of site 2 inside security. Druff looks for the kill, but Suppress has been a miracle worker for the side of Fisher Tea Party in the last few rounds. They were good in the first half, but my goodness, the second half performance on attack is very befitting of the performance Arrays needs on that aggressive stance.
Yeah, I mean, already just going ahead, following things up, really nailing things down, and finding once again that, I mean, they find themselves a 3-0 start, and that is just perfect. I mean, sure, you can attest the majority of that to those Bulldogs still being in the game, making sure to play with those. And I mean, when you get the chance to buy those, by all means on the attacking side with those extra credits of a plant, why not go for it? Especially when you have the confidence surmounting from that first half, knowing that you found those results so instantaneously. And it created so much just breathing room for your team to really just come up with ideas, create that space and say, look, we're not as stressed anymore. We're not constantly in a deficit. Not every single round matters that much. Sure, we want to win, but we want to do it comfortably. We want to feel good about it and know that we can take something away at the end of this. So already Hoosiers, they're the ones that are with their backs up against the wall, their guns being placed up in these corners, looking for something to kind of overextend itself to find a free kill, but that's just not going to be the case.
Wada. A lot of pressure brewing up towards bottom mid, and that is a very dangerous spot for the Hoosiers to try to defend from, especially considering the weapons they have in hand. If they're going to work with limited arsenals, they want to make sure they can fight to the advantages of distance that they're hoping for. That Stinger and Sheriff will be infinitely better up close than they will at far. That's one of the reasons why we see Fisher Tea Party, once they get that information, the shots from those Sheriffs and those Stingers, to rotate in through Garage instead. Boost pack gets them over the snake bite. Stinger on site. Droff takes down the big frag player of Suppress. And while Reese does get one, they lose Mueda after the fact. Up inside heaven. KM Lord, what a shot! Opted taken down. It's a 2v1 though. Turn around the corner. KM Lord may have had a ridiculously clean shot through a smoke. Well, they'll have to find 2 down on site. They'll remove Druff from the equation. Tuck from the angle. You gotta get that, Simba! What is going on? The Hoosiers give up a round they deservedly could have had. But my goodness, does KM Lord save the day?
Again and again, it's something we always say, whether you're a player, a coach, or even then just one of your random teammates you met inside of a ranked lobby. You gotta win your ones. And in those scenarios, it is that much more important knowing that, I mean, so much is on the line. You can really put things into a whirl if you win those. I mean, knowing that not only just off the back of that, you're seeing this round go underway with the Seekers, with the Showstopper. I mean, those are 2 resources that can just kind of nail things in, but the Hoosiers are already strapped for cast, are already kind of working things together here. They don't have full armor to play off of because of the economy that's kind of given to them. So they're earning as much as they can. They're trying to earn their keep, but quite frankly, they're not keeping anything. They're not holding on to much because they're dropping like flies and they can't let that keep happening.
It's one of those problems that can plague teams, especially when the mental starts to get worse for Ware and for the Hoosiers. I can't help but imagine the mental may start to prowl against them ever so, I would say, closer to get this match going their way. It's just Fisher Tea Party on a barrel of rounds, something they also managed to maintain in the first half, but a different pacing to do so, almost a thrashing, as that was a 2-1 start and then a huge affair back the other way. The Hoosiers haven't even gotten that luxury of a 1, that 3rd round win, nowhere close, and it's going to be a rough spot for them to go into. They get first blood here onto the jet for the side of Fisher Tea Party, but the luxuries of a double duelist lineup mean that should you lose one, you always have a second to back them up, and my goodness, has Suppress been good so far for it. Opted round the corner. What a nasty flick. Call it out. Enjoy with a showstopper to take down one, and KM Lord is thirsty for it. But their thirst cannot be quenched. Opted 4 kills. Unbelievable. Check them PC. his Hoosiers to go up to 8. Still 1 round between them.
Your sky's heating up. That's a problem. That's one of those agents that, I mean, you just got to go ahead and kind of keep on their wraps and make sure they can't really do too much.
They're dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, if they just over and over again, they're the ones that can't heal themselves. But I mean, so long as they're killing everybody and everyone else is getting damaged, you're saying, let me clean them up and let me just heal you for your troubles. I mean, it just, that little bit of a, mother character for everybody. Just kind of go ahead and take care of the team. I mean, as you would see literally with any other healer, realistically. I mean, Sage being the only other option, but knowing what's going to go underway for that. So speaking of Sky and speaking of, that specific one on the Hoosier side and what was just done, that's going to give you Seekers to work with. And that's going to give you a lot more effect. That's going to give you a lot more potency on the defensive side, just immediately saying where are these pushes coming through. Is this A going to be a little bit of a fault? Is it just the Viper messing with us? Or are all the Seekers going to go in that direction? Well, when the entire trio goes over to that area and lets you know, just throw it. Just throw a nade. Throw any kind of utility on the other side of that wall and, well, see what happens. And when you find a kill, you're thankful.
Be smooth. A very dangerous play, but it actually works out for at least 1 trade. Immediately taken back afterwards, though, so you keep the man advantage for the time being. I love that play with the Seekers, by the way. You talked about when the trio moves forward, work in tandem. The Tasmanian Tiger to stun. It didn't tag him completely, but it kept him inside the cover, the Astral Smoke. So the paint shells, the nade that got tossed out afterwards could secure. It was just perfect for the Hoosier side to use that information actively. Simba on the back of sight can get one. Moeda, who has been a great figure for the side of Fisher Tea Party, noticeably more silent in comparison to Suppress. But that's, going to happen at one point or another. Same with KM Lore the last few rounds. They'll use the Shrouded Step, though, to fall back closer towards Elbow. Both players in the back of sight. This could be a really good chance for the lockdown for the Hoosiers, but A side is very difficult to use it effectively, considering just how wide it can be. Opponent has to use a Shrouded Step, will opt not to do so. Inside of security. How? Does did not get that? They'll win a miraculous 2v1, but they can't secure a single kill in a turned player. What is happening up in heaven? Podage! What is going on? You think you know one player, 2 more step out of 4K, an 18-13 stat line to tie up Suppress.
I mean, if there's going to be a time and a play and a round to say this game could have been wrapped up, I think that's the one that it really comes down to. Sure, Fisher, they played outstanding so far. I mean, but we see so many teams choke in these final moments of these games specifically. I'll say this is where it usually starts. I don't want to cast or curse anything into existence, but knowing that even then, double digits, checkpoint, chokehold. It's up to you. It's up to you. I'm not going to say how well or how bad you're doing or statistically what happens here. I'm just going to say that it's usually rough. But with the Hoosiers on the eco, it looks likely. It looks doable. It's not guaranteed. It's not favorable, but we'll let the numbers speak for themselves, and better yet, we'll let the players play for themselves, because who knows?
Listen, I'm telling you, one of these two things are going to happen. Fisher Tea Party will win, or Hoosiers will come back and win. Not to leak the script here, but one of these two things will happen. Just keep your eye out forward and let everybody know that Infernosis told you it was so. Reese, despite taking a tickling of the slight flash that came around, it's at least good to secure one big pickup to take down the Rays on the side of Hoosiers. They already are limited in weapons. Limiting them even further in player counts just going to be an even more unfurling of the strategy they're hoping to play for here to keep Fisher Tea Party at bay. Opted long range with the Sheriff is at least good for it. They'll play back over towards security and continuously send shots out in towards main. But with a paint shell to zone them back, it'll be a little harder to do so. They'll send out the guiding light, play in towards Elbow, but unflashed to Suppress. Good for that cleanup kill, and Reese cuts off the flanking option, leaving just one player working from ropes. Druff, the CJ Major, will have to investigate their own death here, as it is a doppelganger frag coming out from Reese to secure that 11th round win.
There it is. So, you can't get mad at me, Fisher. No matter what happens from here on out, I just saved your team from losing this game by not cast or cursing that. So, yeah, you're welcome. I know. Save it for later. But the Hoosiers are taking a timeout. I got to talk about this instead. All things considered, though, I mean, it's because, well, the way this game has really been panning out for them, it hasn't. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. They've been winning their gunfights and kind of playing things really well. They relied on a hero play for, I want to say, 2 or 3 of these rounds. I mean, knowing that they're playing very consistently as a squad, the Stumble controller really has to find its space when it comes around to this map. Knowing you have to work around the middle, you have to kind of play towards these sites. You can't do that solo A Viper split over and over again because, I mean, if your Vipers and fragging isn't really working out for you, the only time you can really have that trump card, that ace up the sleeve, is with that Viper's pit. If you can find that control, pop that thing down, and then just completely mix up Fisher Tea Party and try to figure out where they're going to go and where their next move is going to happen. That's not a resource you get to work with very often, so knowing that you can kind of get it now, you have a couple rounds, let's say, to get another by the time you reach that match point, if you do inevitably get there, or better yet, even beat Fisher Tea Party to the cut.
Honestly, for the Hoosiers, it's hard to say what's going to work out for them. They're looking at the same problem that was plaguing the side of Fisher Tea Party in the first map on Ascent. Momentum curls in, they could squeak one round by, but the loser's bonus, the constant winning, the fact that the Hoosiers aren't really getting very many kills in the rounds that they're losing out on, Fisher Tea Party are going to come at them and have plenty of room. The buffer's not a 10-round buffer like it was on the last map of Ascent, but it's enough to be a really tough spot to be in, especially when that player advantage just gets even more horrendous. Suppressed with a good frag with a rifle. Showstopper after the fact. Buries 2. Only 1 is now gone in favor for the defense of the Hoosiers, and the regrowth puts players back on the right footing for Fisher Tea Party. Spike will go down, and the lockdown forces players even further back. An unfurling of defensive strategy. How do you come back from this? As now one of your best players, arguably the best player for your team that's shown up here on this map of Opted, has been taken down. They'll peek over the top of boxes, lining him up. Simba, out of nowhere. A lineup for KM Lord and Suppress is just Ponage. They'll need to showcase the same infinite wisdom they had previously. They throw down the smoke. They'll try to go for the concussive blast as well. Simba!
Oh my God!
A tango on the line, and the team's lifeline there as well. The Hoosiers get to 9, securing a round win when needed, but the eco still not there. It'll be a big question after meet and match up with Simba, as it'll be rifles or specters with armor, something. Got to make your choice. Opted's going for a judge, interestingly enough. They'll have to play that guiding light pop flash really well.
Well, it's at least a constant divide available with a actual rifle in the hands of that player. So, I mean, there is something here. There's a potential. There is a setup. There's a foundation for something here. But it's one of the more, obviously, unorthodox ways to kind of get the job done. You can kind of rely on a sky ult for a round. And speaking of, well, Fisher Tea Party has one. I mean, From the Shadows isn't really going to do too much. Blazestorm can find something here, though. Already great start coming out from the Viper's Orb. BSUP already going ahead, creating so much to work with there. And even then, Druff winning a gunfight on site with a Spectre. These kinds of gunfights cannot be given up if you want to win this game.
Honestly, Opted needs to fall back. Opted does not need to be the player swinging this. I know they have a judge, but there's just no reason to give up that space. Get over to the B site, regrowth those 2 players that are low, and get the team on strong footing. You could see them pivoting back. Druff and the Viper joining over towards defender spawn. The regrowth, perfect. The Hoosiers have apparently a voice comm in our chat. I know we're not too crazy here, but they at least are listening to some degree. You love to see it. And the Fisher Tea Party, we're going to have to think twice about where they move in from. They'll step down stairwell. Be Smooth is not far behind them. Spike will go down very soon as they pivot in through alley. Will step out in towards this B site. But the unknowns that are plaguing Fisher Tea Party's mind will slow them down just a little bit further. But plenty of time with 30 seconds left. They'll get down that Spike with no qualms whatsoever. And the Hoosiers will have a man advantage on the retake, but a retake is still dangerous nonetheless. And they're going a bit too slow in my mind here. They need to get Spike down soon, because now all 4 players to the side of Hoosiers are back in towards site. It'll be a much faster retake. Despite the gun disadvantage, they can go in swiftly. Opted does get taken down. Ponage with a good twofer, but Simba with the refrag puts KM Lord all by their lonesome, peeking in on the western side of the tower. There's a slow peek out from Simba, and KM Lord will punish. Just Be Smooth. A Viper on a Sky. No utility, I think, for either side, but Be Smooth can tap this Spike for just a moment. Pivot back around towards tower. The timing should favor Be Smooth, but it's not there enough. KM Lord! Oh! You need a player like this, and Fisher Tea Party have found him.
Keep it going. It's these ones, man. You saw them being lost earlier, but you see them being won now. I mean, it just really comes down to perspective to the side and how things are working out for each of these guys. And I mean, once again, Hoosiers in a 4v2. We talk about the gunfights. You talk about the rounds that you can't win, you can't lose. that is one you shouldn't have lost, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, every single timeline, it feels like that should pan out for your favor, but you choose the one where it doesn't. It's not too many isolated fights. It's just, I mean, the pacing there, and not enough utility being thrown out. You have a Sky with flashes available, not really getting the reads on what's going on. You're not getting swings with it. You're not getting the information. You're not using these kits like you need to. But, well, you got only one more shot to do it, and, well, quite frankly, you don't have the guns behind it.
Beast Moon is going to play in very aggressively here. And I think Suppress is aware of that the second this thing dissipates. Oh, he's not. He's looking the other way. Beast Moon tries to run back, but it falls short. Hey, Suppress is dead. That's a win, at least in my mind, but it does come after the loss of a Viper. Something that you were really hoping to hold on to with that utility, the Toxic Screen or something to close in that A site, which is still a possibility here for Fisher Tea Party.
Here.
There's a lot more pressing matters when it comes towards mid. 2 players there, 1 towards garage, 1 towards A main. You worry about lobby side on B. You have a lot of utility to close that out, but you just have to get those kills first and foremost. Look how much utils on B side. Look how little, how absent, how empty the A side is instead. And with Omen rotating back towards mid, I think it's going to be an A-sided push, and they only have 1 player there. And they don't have much to work with, and they could fall right here to Reese because they stop firing. Simba, learn your spray, learn your pattern. Reese will punish you for not hitting the aim laps.
Feel a lot more punishment off the back of this. Especially knowing that their map could go away. Stamina couldn't work out for somebody. Haven's a little bit of a toss-up with the cider map going with it. And when you see the matchup, when you see the results, and you see that 13-9 is what you find as a result, that's just insane to me. Knowing that, I mean, that last map was a selection of one side, ended up happening. We see the flip going away. The collision special is what we call it here. And knowing that even then, it seems a lot even more so on a map like Split than it does on Ascent. It's just kind of baffling, to say the least, that it feels like when we go around to a triple site like Haven, we never know what's going to happen because, well, quite frankly, I don't really have the tracker on these 2 teams of what's going to be going there because neither one of them really selected it. It was just kind of left there.
Yeah, it's a big question. Haven's up in the air. Thankfully, we get to see it, so it won't be up in the air for too much longer, but we called it out. Split tends to be a map where it's really lopsided from one side over the other. It's very even in the first half, but once Fisher steps over to that attack, they become suffocating. They become a team that just really barreled in the pressure, and I can't help but feel like a lot of that was off the back of 2 duelists. Now, we didn't see as much off the Jet throughout the whole series of Ueda, who did really well on map 1 when they showed up, and did very well in the early stages in the first half on map 2. Yeah. The big players that stepped up was Ponage with the big clutch 3K that really saved them rounds. You had KM Lord, who had at least 3 big ones in the final 6 rounds there that saved the day. Hero plays coming out from Fisher that were, I won't say inexcusable by the Hoosiers side, but they were something that is very much so you look at it and say, how the heck did we let that slip through our fingertips? And if even half of the rounds that turned out that way, random 1v3s that would go in Fisher's favor, random 1v2s that would go in Fisher's favor because you guys weren't swinging in tandem with your teammate or something, any of those, the scoreline would have been completely different. The Hoosiers would not need a map 3. But they pay the price, and well-deservedly so for Fisher. Heading into map 3, how will this one go? Fisher have tied things up 1-1. Can they close it 2-1? Will the Hoosiers showcase why they dominated in Ascent? We'll see you guys after a break. Dallas, we said we wanted to see a better map 3, or sorry, map 2. We got it. An actually close scoreline. The Hoosiers falling victim to the Fisher Tea Party side, 13-9, after they just beat them on arguably the easiest map to have a close affair on, 13-3. Haven, we're back to the try and true here of gentleman agreement maps, and if it follows the same standard as Ascent, this should be a Hoosier win. But this looks like a new team, a new feeling, a new level of confidence from Fisher Tea Party. I think this one's going to be just as close as the second, or at the very least, I hope it's just as close as the second.
Yeah, a new mental to go ahead with a new stack of confidence. I mean, just the way they kind of play the game, and even then the way they felt in Split seemed completely contradictory to what we saw in the likes of in Ascent to start things off initially. So knowing that they can find their way along and know they can keep themselves inside the game, it, as you mentioned, was a closer affair. So obviously that does kind of favor the Hoosiers in the long run to say, okay, well, not only were they able to win it out by the long ways and even then kind of keep the game close where they were behind of a 4-0 start, they still in the game at a 4-round deficit. So they just can't let that big surmounted lead, whether it be 2, whether it be 4, no matter what it may be, you want to cut them down at 3 regardless. You can't let these pistol rounds go away too much, and even then that was another big trend that we saw come out was both pistol rounds going over to Fisher on that map of split. You need to go ahead and slow things down. You need to kind of take a second to figure out what's going on. And even then on a force round, you got to make things expensive because that really put the nail in the coffin on you for that second half.
We mentioned it. You just did right there. These pistol rounds, I think for Hoosiers, and you could bring it in. Actually, maybe don't bring it in. In fact, we'll bring it out here. Just get me away from the scene a little bit further. Hoosiers, you got to win these pistol rounds. Momentum is huge. It's everything right now. It is absolutely everything. Look what happens if you give Fisher a couple more rounds. They turn 2 into 5. They turn 2 into 7. They turn lead into gold. They're alchemists. They're pulling out everything here. And this is a ridiculously strong way to go about it. It wasn't the case of Ascent necessarily for them. It was for you. A 13-3. They only pick up a couple rounds and they aren't even sprung together. You guys have insane momentum and you gave them the same chance on map 2. You got to win it out. Win these pistols. Get control in the third. You let them take the third round of map 1. That's fine because you took the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th afterwards. Get that control. Get that momentum. Punish them on round 3s. These pistol rounds are arguably some of the most important ones we've ever seen in the NECC DAOs because they seemingly dictate the entire rest of the game.
I mean, when you see the strong leads like we've seen out of every single half of this entire series so far, it does make sense. I mean, in this series specifically, we haven't really seen that 2-1 split come underway too much, if at all. And we are always seeing just rounds surmounted by a massive lead just right off the get-go again and again and again. So, I mean, right here, right now, these pistol rounds, honestly, I could see a team even just forcing up in the second one just to go ahead and say, why not? If we're going to lose so much money anyways and we're just going to lose it out and just follow the trend, might as well at least give it a shot to kind of create a wild card earlier on. I mean, there is all kinds of things that can really be tossed up in a situation like this, just like compositions, but sadly, we don't see that. We're looking at, once again, a mere composition just like Ascent, but instead of bringing in that Sova and that KO, we're replacing the KO with a Breach because, well, he's just way too viable here.
Ponage had an insane performance on that Omen previously, so seeing them step back onto that feels very comfortable. Reese did really well on the KJ. KM Lord on the Sky was really solid, so you really want to put them on something else they can really go out with. Moeda stepping away from that duelist role, kind of following suit what we saw in map 1. No double duelist for Fisher Tea Party despite the success they had, the divisive success they had on map 2. It's going to be shocking. At the very least, Suppress stays where they were most confident on and sticks to a duelist, but this time around, not the Rays, which is somewhat expected for the map of Haven. For the Hoosiers, Druff off the KJ we've seen them on previously. They hand that over to Enjoy, and Simba will hop into the Jet instead. It's a very versatile team. They have roles and selections they differ on when it comes map to map, and that shows a very large arsenal and a very large portfolio, something that a lot of teams don't necessarily get or maintain throughout seasons. Be a slow play in from the Hoosiers, though. They want control of Courtyard. They want control of Hay, and they've gotten it. They can use that Hay spot to take down Reese, who over-pressured, and maybe Ponage here just the same, and that will be the case, and use that to pivot in through Garage. Simba and Enjoy kills a piece, flanking into the back of sight. They spot the rear of one. The huge paranoia catches 2 in the process, but somehow Fisher have still come away with this round off the backs of a huge play from KM Lord and Suppress, who gets up there third. A buddy ace between the two of them. That is a ridiculous hold, and the Hoosiers, that is unbelievable.
Well, it's a really big turnaround considering what we saw at the start of the round. I mean, already all that Courtyard control going through, the 2 kills initially, and then everything else just kind of fall apart on the site when you're holding things down. It's not a good look for the Hoosiers, knowing that they're going to have to do that again and again and again for the rest of this half, at least 12 rounds, because, well, you're on the defense, buddy. Newsflash, and let's see what you can kind of get done with it. No real forces coming through on the side of the Hoosiers. Instead, we're just going to see one singular sheriff. But speaking of forces, man, is there a bunch on the side of Fisher Tea Party. They are going for these full rifles. They're not really going for the Bulldogs. You do have one kind of being employed here, but you have a Vandal and a Phantom off the back of that as well. You have a majority of the guns being rifles. So keep in mind, if you keep the majority of the players alive, which on this round you're kind of expected to, that's going to be those jokers carried over.
And considering that the Hoosiers on map 1 defensively were an amazing team, to then turn the second map into a bad affair and start it again, I would have maybe preferred to go into the attack. There's no way to know beforehand, obviously, but maybe it would have been better if they started the other end, because the momentum that is something we highlighted being so important in this series, just in general, the Hoosiers defensively have none. They had so much barreling into map 2, and they thought they could hold out to that second half, and it turned into anything but. Maybe they got iced out from their first attacking half and just thought that things could change. It doesn't work out. Fisher Tea Party 1-0 already, and it looks like the possibility of a 2-0 start. They have the proper weapons to work with. They've actually got a little bit expensive of a buy for round 2. Vandal at least in the hand for 1. That's a bit of cost inefficient, but if they hold on to these players, it'll be a good spot to work from. Classic free gun for Enjoy. Huge concussive blast, good for 1, but oh my goodness, Fisher Tea Party buries so many of the Hoosier side and reaches the final finishing blow. That is icing on the cake for a round 2, and not what the Hoosiers are looking for when they want to make the round at least pricey.
Bearing the hatchet for a round like that, and even then once again kind of giving yourself enough leeway to kind of open things up for the map and following up into this one. You don't just see the Vandals and the Phantoms being bought up. You did see a little bit of an idea coming out there from Muda saying, you know what, I should buy one as well. You got guns already. You have a Spectre. Don't worry about it too much. Let your other teammates go ahead and get these armor to play off of. You play that support role. Let's at least get 1 kill, or death. Doesn't really matter. That's going to be a gun to work with anyway, so long as you attack alongside that player. So already, fast hit towards A. While you have these guns, and if you got a Spectre and Bulldog, make it quick so they just don't expect it, and Fisher nail it.
The speed is very important, and it's already worked out for them. You said it, they nailed it. Now they can put the last few nails in the coffin, proverbially speaking. And Suppressed does a wonderful job of that. What in the world? Druff down the longest line of sight possible on this A side. The western wall of A flanking all the way over. Sorry, eastern wall of A flanking all the way over towards Hall and out through the other side towards defender spawn of 4K. Do you steal this ace? Do you take away the potential? Or do you let them go forward and go in? They'll try to feed it, and it's not going to happen. Huge chances now for the Hoosiers to make this round a little bit more costly, but the damage has already been done. And they'll quickly back away from that A side and not really test the limits or give any open space up for Enjoy to work in from. In a 1v3, it's near insurmountable. Just make sure you can cap one more off, and it will not happen. Ponich with the Bulldog bites back hard, and Fisher Tea Party, momentum is king, and they are already starting to bury the side of Hoosiers.
It's almost like I said that we're not going to see a 2-1. We're going to see a 3-0 or a 4-0, so you might as well just forced up in the second. But that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I get it. I'm not a coach. I just observe things. We have X-ray vision, so we don't know everything. We just see everything. So it's okay not to take our advice, and understandably, even if you did try to take it, it'd be illegal in terms of the format. You'd be breaking the tournament rules, league rules, match rules, and you'd also be a minute late because, or a minute and a half. Behind. So, yeah, so good luck with that. It'd be interesting. It'd be impressive, quite frankly, but it wouldn't really be worth it. Regardless, so Fisher Tea Party, they have themselves a lot to be playing with right now. Good Endostorm already going ahead, flushing at a player. Enjoy wants to try and hold that, but I mean, get all credit where it's due of trying to commit, but you're 6 feet under anyways, and you know that death was inevitable, so just kind of playing that thing out. Already in the 5v4 situation, you're just trying to feel out this map once again, kind of see what works in terms of the default, and you're just kind of putting that split over towards the A side of the map.
It's a great place. Honestly, I'm honest. It's a very impressive way to get a lot of damage out towards the KJ from there and be smooth. Moeda with a huge fragment kill steps in with a wall bang towards Simba, and the only blood that goes in the Hoosiers' favor is opted to take down Ponich. Sends out a bit of their own destructive force, concusses down at least 2, but not enough swift movement to act on that DPS, on that utility. And it puts him in a very bad spot. Concussive blast going the other way. Ted, Opted, takes a couple steps back away. Druff will have to stay with them here. Do they play for an exit frag? What are they going for here? They're looking to deny a play in from short ramp from down over towards sewer side, but you got to step in a sight. You're on the defense. You've got to retake the objective. You came into this round with not much to your name in the first place. Woo! You got to actually step up to the plate and hit that homer. It's Opted down towards Reese. Druff playing on this exit. Huge utility. It's perfect. Druff with 2, plays with fire. And though they fall, Fisher Tea Party lose them all. So the Hoosiers will lose out the round still. But it made it costly, which is something they failed to do like all of the last map on Split.
It's over and over again, man. I mean, you're seeing these circumstances where, I mean, just it looks like doable. It looks doable, and that's what we're loving to see. We're loving to see these teams keep these rounds close. Go for those trades. Find those impact plays. Get 2 kills on rifle players with a Spectre just back-to-back in situations like that to make things tense, to make them look doable from either side. But problem is, those rounds, it's neat to say, look, at the end of the day, when you're looking at the scoreboard, when you see the results of the game, 4-0 for a start here, you don't care whether it was a 1v1 at the end. You don't care whether it was a 5v5 and everybody dropped dead at the exact same time simultaneously. It comes down to who won those rounds. And in the 4-0 start, the Hoosiers are really biting the dust here, and they need to cough that thing up and really get themselves back on their feet.
Momentum, momentum. Like to talk about Father Time being the most fickle mistress there is, being that 6th player on the field. Apparently momentum is a lot more than just that, because the Hoosiers have fallen apart in 1v3s even. The last map was split off the back of momentum. Feels like the 6th, 7th, and 8th player to face off against. The Hoosiers defensively, though, are holding on thanks to the hands of Enjoy. 3 kills in this round, still not done just yet. Reese may have the upper hand in this next engagement, though. They'll send out a lot of utility, deal with them on tube. But they lose their only teammate of Simba, sorry, a B-Smooth at the time, as Simba gets that big pickup and the conclusion they were hoping for. That was a very, I would say, dangerous round for the Hoosiers, Dallas. They went for an operator, something that they're already struggling economically speaking. They super stretched the limits with an operator buy in that round, and it still barely pans out for them, but it does get them the win, and the gamble pays off.
Well, I mean, it's one of those also kind of the switches that has to be flipped in eventually. There are certain switches in games, and depending on what kind of player that you're working with, you have to work around your team. And if Simba knows his way around an operator, you got to give it to him, quite frankly, especially on the defensive side of the map. I mean, maybe that's that kind of target that lets your player come online, just like Ultimates. That could also be something that really creates these opportunities and kind of starts getting the game going underway. Some damage. See a little bit of an idea. You see something kind of come underway. Problem is, though, you don't see too much with 2 players already down for the side of Fisher Tea Party. This could be that switch to put Hoosiers into the game. It already got them on the board. They just got to double down with it.
KM Lord has a little bit of assistance coming in from bottom A. We try to work in from that short side. There's a lot of possible dangers of presences on site. That a major man disadvantage, though. 2 players deficit, but it's an even fight on the A side. Arguably could be favored their way, sending 1 player in towards Link, but all players moving from short and the other one in from B. Could be disastrous if they don't go fast enough. The utility started to be sung out towards the A side. That will sing dues for the Hoosiers on C side to rotate as fast as they can towards A. Look at the KJ catching them on the flank. Do they see them? Is it a knife? Is it a knife? No, too slow. Curious couldn't go. The trigger discipline gives them 2, though. They hunt for more. They get it. A 3-4 on sight. The slow prowl from Beam works wonders. And the Hoosiers questioning what's next. It was a 5v3. What just happened? 1 man and 1 man only on the prowl punishes you at every single turn. The lockdown forces you even further back, and the retake seemingly impossible at a player disadvantage, and the utility swarming the objective as fast as can be. The position up in heaven is known. 1 out through Hall. Do they know the call out? Reese hiding within the dark cover gets intel off the recon bolt. KM Lord for Druff isolating the last of Enjoy. It's a 4K for Reese, tearing apart the side of the Hoosiers, and Fisher Tea Party are singing dues to their side up 5-1.
No, I mean, Fisher's finding their form here. I mean, it took them a really long while, I'll say, in this day. I mean, with that 13-3 start, just going against them. But now, I mean, split, it was rough. But seeing here, it's almost like they're going to kind of completely turn this thing around, flip the table, flip the script, and find themselves doing the exact same thing they did, or they had happened to them, to the Hoosiers in that first map, with the way they're kind of playing this thing out. We're seeing that same exact kind of form and flow that we saw the Hoosiers. They're taking control of the map. Sure, they're on the attacking side, but I mean, the way they're doing it is just so efficient. The way they're playing it, even then better yet. I'm loving how they're just not really scared to do anything. The ultimates are going out because they understand, okay, there's more rounds left in this half. We can go ahead and not, quote-unquote, burn it, but if it's just for a singular individual in terms of a number difference on players, that's worth it for a round. We're sitting at 5. You find yourself 6. You're sitting in a guaranteed even half. No matter what, you have to capitalize off this. And the Hoosiers are the ones that are really holding back, trying to say, we need to find an opportunity. You just need to make those better yet.
Reese still prowling around inside of mid. If you hold out towards Rabbit, there's a lot of dangers that could be there bouncing around here and there. That's why on the defense, it's your responsibility to play these smokes correctly. Something that the Hoosiers weren't doing the best on the last map of Split. Honestly, Fisher Tea Party with the Astro were doing a great job of isolating and closing and securing. That's what you needed to do. Sorry, with their Omen was doing a great job of isolating and securing, especially at the back of their paranoia plays. Hoosiers weren't making enough uses of their controller, and it seems the same case here. As it's a bad spot to be in, losing him right off the rip, and the defense is falling apart from the double push up from KM Lord and Suppress from bottom short. This round may already be over. It's a 3v1. Fisher Tea Party in control. Spike is going down, and there is no stopping the damage now. And Enjoy only has a Vandal and 100 HP to work with. No armor, even to their name. And despite seeing Suppress on low HP, completely looking the other way, Suppress still 180 flicks over to that side, or 90-degree flicks over to that side, and gets the headshot needed to secure. What a flick, and what a kill, and what a round for Fisher Tea Party.
Yeah, big stances here. I mean, even then for the Hoosiers, they're going to go ahead and understand that right now, this is one of those dire circumstances where you can whip out a timeout. It's not really going to give Fisher too much of an advantage to have this time to talk, because they're just kind of hitting their form, and they don't really need to adjust too much. They just need to wait for the adjustments to come through to kind of figure out what exactly is happening on the field. And the Hoosiers, I think it really comes down to not just holding these angles. I mean, where they're kind of playing this out, their retakes are really slow. They're not able to hold out too much initially on these sites. I mean, you saw the operator trying to go ahead and find its form, but that's going to be a really expensive endeavor, and you can't rely on that. It needs to be switched around the map. You need to find these kinds of situations that swap up. You can't have the default be the default. The default needs to switch up. You need to have multiple forms of those, and quite frankly, the one that's working out right now, I just don't know if it's it. Jet over towards A. That's going to be your typical use. I think, honestly, Breach may be a better one. Kind of look for that wild card, look for some pushes, and force these players to kind of sit and spawn for a little bit so you can figure out what's going on.
There's so many dangers already present for the side of the Hoosiers defensively to make matters worse. It feels like Fisher Tea Party with the slow plays, these angles in through short, the absolute domination they felt like they've had on that A site have not warranted them any other reason to go there. Hoosiers defense seem like their life depends on it, and a few times we've seen it, Fisher Tea Party lose out the early stages. It's 2 rounds. They lose out. They have the player disadvantage. But somehow, some way, Fisher Tea Party get kills needed in a post plant, or even just a hold on site before the spike goes down, to reclaim control of the round and put things back the other way. If the Hoosiers can just capitalize on the players early that they are losing here and keep them further back, more in control. I get information is important, but it's not the end-all be-all. It's not Rainbow Six Siege. It only helps. It doesn't control. They go for the jump peek, though, on C. A safe angle to work from, and Druff will go and place down the dark cover to close out, and they'll move pin pivot over towards the back of Plat. Cover goes out towards Garage. They try to keep that away from the angle for the player inside there, but Enjoy was out towards sights. It will not matter. Reese with a pickup kill. And Fisher Tea Party have that player advantage, and they will take that, scraping it by and rotate away. They want A. It's already worked before. KM Lord with 1. Almost finds a second, but Simba will survive, though no armor to their name and no eyesight and more. How much utility will be dumped to one man? And it will work eventually. Ponage to secure. It's a 4v2 on site, and Hoosiers are at their wits' end.
You even saw the panic there, just trying to go through, looking for those trades, looking to kind of hold things down. But I mean, regardless, at the end of the day, Fisher Tea Party found the damage. Even when they didn't find the kills necessarily, they were still getting these shots off, still making things hectic, and still making things contentious, just like Opted's trying to go ahead and accomplish right now. With so many players at such a low threshold, they're trying to get things done, they're trying to make it workable. And with that Rolling Thunder hitting both those players, just getting the time to do it. But they're not pushing it out. They're just holding it.
One enemy remaining.
Doesn't matter. Health's there, and it works out for them.
What a round in recovery from the Hoosiers. They were at their wits' end, but this is only the beginning, or it has to be. They pick up their second. Still 4 rounds between these sides. Dallas, it has to curl in their favor. The graph has to spread out, has to fall the other way. Momentum cannot be allowed back towards Fisher. And the greatest part about it is they've been making the rounds at least costly. Look at the eco for the side of Fisher Tea Party. Player doesn't even have full armor. Reese, who's at 11 kills and 5 deaths, is having to work with a Vandal and soft armor to go to boots. KM Lord has plenty of money, I guess extra in the back pocket, but it still wouldn't alleviate the concerns with the team. especially considering that Jet, aka Suppress, is nowhere close to that Blade Storm. If the Hoosiers take this round, Fisher Tea Party will be at a bad spot to boot, and that could fall 4-6 just so quickly, and Fisher Tea Party will lose that clinical edge momentum they've been relying on so far to this point. But Punich goes in big, up in heaven, takes down one, falls quite literally out of heaven and down towards hell, where the rest of the team is lying down and waits. Simba off the board, it's Suppressed for the kill. A 3v3 now on site, but the lockdown from the defensive Hoosiers will force them back and slow down the push from Fisher Tea Party.
I mean, we're seeing Hoosiers hit their form, large investment regardless, so to kind of keep things to slow down and force Fisher back. We've seen Fisher do such a great job with that same exact kind of utility to force things out, play for the post plant, just work off that timer and make sure to nail down these rounds. But right there, Hoosiers, they found themselves a chance. They had to capitalize off it, but it seems like right now, Muda is the one who's just carrying this game, quite frankly. It's probably suffering from scoliosis because that back is bending how well you've seen this player carrying these past couple rounds. I mean, the impact is insurmountable, not only just in terms of the kills and the deaths, because obviously the 8-6, you're not really too impressed by that. But those 5 assists and the amount of pressure that you've seen in these past 2-3 rounds has been something that's going to literally carry so much weight just for the rest of this game, just passively.
I cannot believe the Fisher Tea Party have still somehow managed to get things back under control. That was possibly the most important round of this half, if not this map, Dallas, for the Hoosiers. I mentioned it. They take that. They win that. They would have had the eco for this next. They would have thrown the eco for Fisher Tea Party out the window, and they would have had a chance on a Thrifty, though no guarantee. It would at least been an 80-20 percentage, considering what Fisher Tea Party have done before on their Thrifties. And they fall apart. And the Hoosier side defensively can't deny Fisher Tea Party. And it's working the same way here in this round. They're working on an eco. Sheriffs and Stingers praying that something gets up close and personal, that Fisher Tea Party overextend a single limb. And they find a little bit of space to work from. Turret gives the information they need to keep Enjoy at bay, especially with doors already broken. It's a freebie for Reese. No damage taken. A perfect kill to conclude. And Druff gets spotted, and though a single tap of that Stinger hits the noggin of Reese, nothing will work their way past that point. And Fisher Tea Party move in flawlessly to the C site, where, yeah, usually they have a man disadvantage making it to this site and holding on to it. But they've got a plentiful advantage in this round, a 5-on-2. And there are no rifles, nothing big, nothing substantial for the last 2 players to pick up, since no one in Fisher Tea Party has even a scrape going against their record till Simba can cut down KM Lord and pray that this Cloudburst can give them the space for that rifle. But the utility comes out, and B-Smooth bites the Vandal shot from Reese. It's Simba. Needed to drop the Stinger. They didn't. They could have had that rifle previously if they did, but it's not going to matter. 4v1, it's done. Suppressed for the final, and Fisher Tea Party are 8-2. They still got 2 more rounds to devour the competition.
I mean, not a flawless, but who cares, right? I mean, it was only one player. You get dropped off in the meantime. You're getting to the point where, I mean, money is kind of stacking up anyway, so why not just spend some? Because, you know, billionaires, they get to the point where it's like, it gets boring to spend money, but you kind of have to, just to kind of keep your pockets in check.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. I mean, let's be real. If you get so much money, it's like, shopping's going to get boring eventually, but it's like, I kind of have to do it.
There's this whole movie about that where I think it was like Eddie Murphy gets like $1 billion and he has to spend enough of it, or gets $1 million. And he has to spend all of it within like a month, and he keeps making money instead of losing it.
Oh,
like,
bro, I could spend $1 million so easily.
Yeah, it's also the modern.
God.
I could spend $1 million on a PC and be happy.
I was about to say, a single Apex heirloom, there it all goes immediately.
Yeah, we live in a different generation than that movie came out. Great movie, though. Recommend looking it up. Fantastic film. I have not seen it in probably 18 years, 17 years. A little bit older now, though, so classic film. Either way, look at this. The Hoosiers, speaking of classics,
yeah,
it's been a while since we've seen this. A man advantage for their side on the defense, and they're going to have to hold on strong. The Fisher Tea Party side are going to do something that they are very privy to. Push the C site with a man disadvantage and still somehow come out with the win. But it will get a little bit dicey. Reese, great opportunity, but opportunity strikes in the reverse. The Hoosiers now at a double player count against Fisher Tea Party, who are wanting to go 9-2 at the very least, and it is not working out. How does the double swing from Fisher work that way? Picking the wrong ends, but Enjoy works from Garage, and they will revel in this victory to go up to 3, which, as you've said before, is the minimum you want to have working into a half.
after that singular pick, kind of equalizing things and then just making sure that kind of everything afterwards just played out for Fisher, that was where the real concern started to come up for me, because, I mean, Hoosiers, we've seen them have that man advantage before, but we've seen them blunder it before, more importantly. I mean, I want to say we've seen it 3 times in this half so far, and it just hurts every single time to know that you have something under control, that it seems doable, but one player just kind of goes on a tangent, whether it not even be the entire team, just a couple of players, maybe just 2. You're saying they did more than enough, and it just kind of hurts to see that get knocked down a notch. But regardless, you're seeing it here. You're seeing the third round for the Hoosiers, and that's good on them. They are finding themselves some relevancy in this game, and they even then find themselves an initial first blood off the back of this, and a second one with the Hunter's Fury. This is a good stance for them where you talk about the numbers working in their favor. They have to just hold on to them.
Moeda, slow prowl in through short. They know they've had a couple difficulties here already. One all the way back towards attacker spawns, the craziest death so far, but doesn't mean there's anything too bad to work with. You know, there's already been an ultimate utilized. It's just a matter of holding on strong, and the Hoosiers, they step in fairly big for this one. Druff takes down Ponage. The lockdown, you can't really work or worry about it anymore with that breach. You can't just destroy it with the utility. It's just not as effective as it used to be. It takes more, and that's not available to your side. There goes a huge ultimate popped out from Fisher Tea Party. Use it or lose it territory might as well. A 1v4, and Moeda will be spotted by the recon. Bolton be smooth. It's smooth with it around the corner of the chassis. Takes down Moeda as Optin will defuse, and the Hoosiers will go only half the tally of Fisher Tea Party, now moving into their attack. And they've got to pray. This is at least better than it was on the last map for them on their attack. Or sorry, on their defense. They've got to pray their attack is absolutely clean from this point onwards, because they cannot let Fisher Tea Party acclimate more rounds in their favor. Just 2 puts them at double digits. 4 puts them at a stage of this game almost in series almost being done, and 5 mistakes is the end all be all.
I mean, even then already, I mean, you got to keep in mind the pistols. We've seen those be detrimental in this entire series, and this could be the end of it. Quite frankly, if Fisher Tea Party, I think if they win this pistol, that you could just go and kind of call this game wraps. But I mean, still, there's so much to do. You can finally hit that standard split of the 2-1 that we've seen just so commonly, but I don't know if that's going to happen. It just feels like the way that this game's been working out, all the weight relies on this one round alone of who finds it, who gets the economy to work out for them in the next, who can go ahead and force out maybe a Phantom, a Vandal, a Bulldog, depending on how many you really want to buy for the next round, and where's it going to go with that. And, well, a first blood will definitely help in that regard, as you see players just trying to set up inside that garage and completely go to the seaside. You're working for a retake, and you've already found a blood for it.
Optin going for the plant. The Hoosiers trying to use that as a point of momentum. Suppress, though. Good for 2.
Oh, my
Still
God.
alive as well. And Fisher Tea Party, someone cut down Suppress. This player cannot be stopped, and they're feeding the beast even further. Give them the pip. They already got 3 kills. The Blade Storm coming even quicker online. And that'll make round 3 have a very good shot for a win. They can just get Suppressed a little bit more util here. Maybe an ult pip if they play slow through A. Maybe they get a couple of kills on the flank if a push then through C goes through. Just something to help Suppress in round 3 or 4, which is something that the Hoosiers really wanted on map 1. And we're a little bit slow. They only got that at lockdown on round 5.
Yeah, I mean, knowing already you're seeing the Guardian, the Bulldog. You're on the defense. You can't really afford as much because on the attacking side, you have the Spike to kind of give you that extra little leeway to knock yourself over that line and manage those rifle buys, or at least a couple, depending on who finds the kills. Especially even then, kills don't give you much credits, but they do give you a little bit, which could also kind of have a big factor there, depending on who gets those kills. But Fisher, they're the ones who are getting the kills. They're the ones who are getting the rounds. The ones with the lead, they're the ones who can play this thing out. And even then, more so, they're the ones who can kind of just close this thing out right here, right now, so long as they win this one. If they could shut down the Sheriff player, that could be it. But thankfully for the side of Hoosiers, they keep this thing alive and well, and they at least manage to get one more.
Game Lord, 2 for before falling short. Somebody had a shot. They took it once, but it's not gone any other way but the other side. Sheriff from Optin takes down Reese. Suppress after the fact, a 1v1. And Optin needs to fall back quickly. Honestly, Optin, sit inside garage. Play over there. Bait out the play for it towards C. Rotate back through. What is this dude thinking? The slowest prowl back around they can. Ponage testing every water imaginable. Dipping the toes in. A bit too cold this way. A bit too warm here. But this bowl of soup's just right. That's the case for Opted. A site all the way free. They don't know for sure, but they want to believe, and that will be the case. They'll go in to plant down a spike. They'll plant it on that eastern wall like mentioned before, and this will put Pwnage in a spot where they need to rotate away. They can move up towards heaven. They've got the paranoia. They've got the dark covers. This is an exceptional way to go about it, but no shrouded step means positional advantages will be nearly impossible to do. They'll have to go face front into an unknown scenario ahead of them. Paranoia still online. No dark cover being utilized is a shocking result for me. They'll use it here on Spike. They have a second one they could pop the other way. Pwnage will hop off. Opted feels the pressure to move forward. They'll swing closely. They spot him in.
Oh my God.
Spectre's up. Sprint galore. The speed difference between the SMG and rifle pays off. And Fisher Tea Party will net around a huge one at that to put them up to 10.
The timing is the most excruciating part of all of that. I mean, it's right whenever you're hitting that cover and the smoke is on your eyes. There's time where you can still see the butt of your gun. There's times where you can see the barrel, but you can't see your shoulder. And right there in that get-go, that's where the Omen's able to see you. It's just outstanding to see moments like that start to go underway. But it wasn't a dominant force like we were expecting it to. Like we've seen it kind of unravel here in these past couple pistol rounds. It has been a very close race in that regard. You carry that singular bulldog over. So long as a single player can kind of go off of that sheriff like we saw in that last round on the attacking side, maybe you can find some exchanges here. But, I mean, this is where you got to break that streak that we talk about so much, because this checkpoint chokehold situation, if it happens here on a force round, on a rifle round for Hoosiers, you can just call this as good as done.
First blood does fall off the Hoosier side on the attack, but Fisher Tea Party, they're willing to give up this round. They're already at a spot where they know you don't force up round 3 even after the win in round 2. It's not really worth the endeavor. You have 6 rounds buffer. Play smart, play steady. It's the right idea. It's not cuffing season just yet. Pwnage will fall back, takes a huge lick of damage in the process. Bulldog is out. You can slightly see the footsteps around that corner if there were to be pressure coming from there, but that will not be the case. The pressure comes from A main instead. Sorry, C long, C main instead. And the Hoosier side will more likely than not net themselves a win here in this round, as only Mueda is left standing and bar a miracle here with the Sheriff. They'll do their best. Overwatch 2, Cassidy impersonation. There may not be more pro league there, but there's plenty of action going on competitively here. Send out a flash, catches both, but B-Smooth just keeps on spraying and keeps on tugging. It's Hoosier side getting a much needed round win in the 3rd round of this second half, but with so much more action left ahead of them, a 5-round buffer between these two sides, it still feels like an impossible task. Fisher Tea Party have proven that to be the case. Something needs to change.
I mean, this is the first starting point, really, for them on the side of the map. We haven't really gotten too much of an idea of what they're capable of here. So, I mean, this could be the point where they just really say, okay, we're made of something completely different. And Fisher could lock it down, or better yet, Hoosiers could just kind of go ahead and make sure to really nail this thing in and come on the comeback that they really need. Because, well, finally, we're seeing that 2-1 split. We're seeing some trends being broken here. And that's all it really takes. Whether one variable kind of goes ahead and gets skewed in one direction or the other, knowing that we're kind of returning to a form of normalcy could really do Hoosiers some good here.
B-Smooth, with assistance from 2, works in from garage, and they'll pivot up towards window as well. While the utility does get sung forward from Fisher Tea Party, B-Smooth goes unscathed from it, and so will the rest of the team. But that information they traded out towards Link connecting to the seaside goes both directions, and Hoosiers have lost pretty much every 50-50 gunfight to this point. They've turned that statistic on 70-30. Honestly, 70-25. The 5%'s just gone missing. Who knows where it is? So they'll fall back. They want to play something a little bit smarter. They'll smoke off heaven. That gives the information to Fisher Tea Party that there is, in fact, a rush coming in towards the A site. To make matters worse, with Reese off the board from Simba's hands, they now know the rotate has to come through effectively. The speed demon side of the Hoosiers of Indiana may just be a really solid foot to work in from. The quick sprint has to work out, but this is VALORANT, not the Olympic. Speed isn't necessarily everything. The ultimates have to meet in match, and they're doing so well here. It's Pwnage for 2, though, does go down. Opted needs to stay safe, and they will, as Enjoy will secure that final kill, and Hoosiers will pick up for the 2nd time in this map, 2 rounds in a row.
That's all it takes. Making sure to kind of keep themselves in this once again. I mean, you got to come that comeback arc eventually. And I mean, there's no better time than right now. That's the only circumstance we've seen any team really kind of choke it up when they're at a deficit of 4 or more. So I mean, knowing you can do it right here, it comes down to the economy. You see the Blade Storm, that's going to be employed in a round like this. I mean, you know that you can go ahead and kind of start that flip-flop scenario of the economy, which is really going to give you some massive assistance when it comes around to getting back into the tie situation. Because, well, if you only really have to necessarily win half the rounds of whatever your deficit is, well, it doesn't really seem all that impossible anymore. That's only, well, 2 at this point. And quite frankly, the next round, that last one was 1. And then if you can do it twice, surely you can do it a 3rd time.
It's a good spot to start for the Hoosiers side, getting a player advantage, though they did lose 1 in the process and now make it a 2nd. It's not necessarily the worst case scenario, but Mueda making this round really inefficient. 2 kills with the classic lull free gun. It pays out despite the free cost to it. They'll throw out a nano swarm. They'll tap it initially, drop. How do you get off that so quickly? And how do you take down Reese like that? It's a 2v1. It was initially, but with the success in Fisher Tea Party, they managed to drop it closer. This would be a horrid round for the Hoosiers to take out and lose. It's a very slow play from Ponage. Drop around the corner. Will they spot them first? They will. Thank goodness for the Hoosier fan base. They'll hold on. Getting a 3rd round for the first time in this map, strung together. But Fisher Tea Party were ecoing there. They didn't expect a win. The fact they got 4 kills is honestly enough wins for them, Dallas. They'll come into this next round feeling plenty confident. The Hoosiers, despite the win, aren't the best economically looking, but they do have 2 players with very good credit counts despite it.
I mean, you're putting too many eggs in one basket, though. You can't really have that one player. You got to make sure to kind of bonus or at least buff everything out to a certain extent to where it feels balanced across the board. I mean, you have buys here from the Hoosiers. Fisher Tea Party, they're now kind of looking to see if they can get online. And, well, with that operator in hand, Suppress is the one that we really haven't seen with that operator yet. Now kind of waking up and having his opportunity. We did see that kind of come into line on that Ascent map. Wasn't all that bad. Suppress was definitely have his opportunities there. And even then, starting off this map strong, he's having his 2nd coming.
Suppress. No way they get away with that one. Enjoy. Let's get one off screen. Ponage, though, inside Cubby, rolling thunder to boots. This is not a good spot for the Hoosiers to be in. Trapped in on sight. The flanks comes forward, but it's only an even trade. Hoosiers still break away with 1 more in the engagement, but it's a 2v1. He lines them up, but Enjoy can't secure. Fisher Tea Party so close to a very dangerous position, but still deny the 4-round spree. Something they only did once right at the rip of this map. They go up to 11. And the credits that I said were in favor there for the Hoosiers. They needed that economic boon. 2 soft armors. Simba, though, with the Blade Storm. Plenty of ultimates to boot. Droff is used seemingly always the last player left standing. Could use that from the shadows. For one of the few times it really is a good ultimate, Dallas, on this map.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good for information. It's good for pressuring Spike if you want to kind of swing off it. It's an extra body you can kind of treat it like. Just for the sake of just throwing it out there. But I mean, not a lot of players like to use it like that. They just kind of think, oh, let me hold on to it and I can find a more useful situation. Maybe, but more than likely not. So let's just press it and see what happens. And honestly, you press it and what happens? You get side control. You get an idea of who's kind of playing around the area. You get all those necessary kills and you know that, okay, there's nobody else really around. So 3v3, not the best thing in the world, but having that spike down definitely helps your case.
Fisher Tea Party. No one's on an opposing angle. It's everyone holding in towards long, and the lockdown brought out from the attack. It's a little bit short, in all honesty. It still allows people in towards side. It allows a very good engagement angle from KM Lord to put a shock dart in towards Cubby. Okay, that was arguably one of the worst shock darts we've seen, but it at least zones them away for the time being. KM Lord takes down Beast Mode. The utility usage wasn't perfect, but the shots sure as heck are. It puts Mueda now in a shot opportunity for another. Lines up 3 kills for Mueda. And Fisher Tea Party with just enough time on that defuse after sticking it to half, which was necessary. They're at now match series point here in the NECC for the Legends division here against a team that usurped them 13-3 on Ascent. They've come back with a vengeance. I think their coach just yelled at them like crazy between map 1 and 2 because this is a completely new team, it feels like.
Yeah, you can't really tell whether after that first map they were kind of disappointed in themselves or mad. But I mean, after you find yourself a solid start on the second map, we're saying, it doesn't really matter what happened. We're here to play now for sure, and they definitely shown that. I mean, the resilience of the squad has been something to definitely go ahead and test, regardless of the result of the series. But considering they only need one more, and even then Suppress has already posted up with his operator, that was a player who really kind of went ham that last round. Found two, could do it once again, and I think if you can accomplish at least that, especially with the lockdown, just kind of keep it alive, and the economy, the purchase out of Hoosiers, I don't know, man. They got to work something out here. It's going to be really good.
It's got to be fast, too. 65 seconds left on the clock as of this point. Well ahead of the time. They're really priming up something here towards the A site. They've got one player flanking in through B main, but the issue is no one's there for the side of Fisher Tea Party on that flank. A very front forward approach, lining up for K-Lord, cutting down one, make it two. The third was there, but Simba, who was left lying in wait to survive, a shocking one at that, will come back and bite the bullet and get themselves a kill where needed and get the spike down after the fact. Lockdown comes down. Fisher Tea Party can retake the objective quickly. One in from Heaven, one from Hall. But the danger is still present in towards sight. And the other ultimate for Fisher Tea Party could be that from the shadows. They could use it back towards A lobby, but one player is there and they do not know. They'll tap the diffuser. Stepping on for now. Honage will tap it once again. The shock dart keeps them back. They're very aware of the ever-present dangers. And Enjoy with only a classic gets away with it. They'll sing out another shot. Be Smooth holding close. Ponage. Do they have the space? They'll stick it for now. Halfway there, 40 HP, and the random shot from the operator will save the Hoosiers. A demoralizing round loss, but it cost them everything. And they do not have the money for what they want to bring. No operator, no big boy gun, the boomstick removed, and there's not even enough for armor and rifles for every player on this roster. Thankfully, Fisher Tea Party, they're even worse for wear.
Yeah, I mean, that's your saving grace, considering, I mean, knowing the Fisher Tea Party, they're the ones that are at a lack for real resources here, but they're not at a lack for rounds. So the ones that have a huge advantage over you, they're sitting on match point. They can fall asleep with the controller right now. Going forward, they can just wait for the overtime and still know they're going to have a purchase inevitably come in their direction. But as it stands, they're going to look for some early aggression, try to switch things up, look for pressure change, and see if, that'll kind of overwhelm the Hoosiers. They're not falling for it. They have the guns to kind of wait for it to come to their doorstep, and they're here to play. But as it stands, knowing that even then, in the next round, there's going to be somewhat of a switch up. There's going to be kind of different plays being made. You're looking to just kind of get in their heads and know that the next round, that's where you have to close up shop.
Shots connect from Opted. They get a little bit more secure in their comfortability. Fisher Tea Party went really over-aggressive there. It's the right idea from them. They know they had a thrifty round, put some cost effectiveness against Hoosiers, and play for another. 3 rounds buffering between these two teams in Dallas. Fisher Tea Party, they're going to go for a very costly round for this buy. Suppress on the operator. Defensively, it adds up and makes sense. And when they only have one ultimate on the board, though Moeda is quite close, they want to get the lead as early as they can and play for an engagement off the back of that big snipe. They're going to go in through short to do so, where literally every player for Fisher Tea Party are currently stacked up. This could be a great chance to play against it. 1 through short. Dark cover goes over towards long. Suppress not playing a hefty angle, being held back initially by that recon bolts. Suppress will have to be extremely patient here. Owl drone around the corner, fall back as fast as you can. Suppress getting chased by the Owl drone, but no player there with a rifle. Here comes the huge rolling thunder. Hoosiers open up the round for the taking, and the big gun that was opted out for the Fisher Tea Party side. The operator itself no longer in effect. It's guns up with rifles. KM Lord and Ponage for one. Ponage still standing, though KM Lord does not have the same luxury. And it's a play up and through heaven. A 3v2. Fisher Tea Party looking down upon the few inklings of players remaining, is able to remove one. That's Reese, but Ponage though left for the 2v1. Paranoia slightly tags. They have no vision. What a great usage of the util, and the Hoosiers reach double digits and steal away the operator.
Another purchase underway, another purchase gone for the side of Fisher Tea Party, knowing that even then they had those 3 ultimates to work with, they're not going to be enough. Hoosiers, a great investment of those in that last round, knowing the operator was fleeing away towards site, and that was the recon drone taking care of it. They were too concerned with actually just shooting that thing off, or just even then running and turning tail from it, than actually just killing it, because it gave you so much information to push all the way into sight and let you know that Rolling Thunder was going to hit the jet. And greatest part about a Rolling Thunder is against an operator is that you can't aim when you're stunned. And that's what it comes down to. I don't care whether you can actually shoot or what the rate of fire is. If you're an operator, I just don't need you to ADS because you're probably not going to hit me on that thing from hip fire anyways. And if it does, you're only blaming that specific shot for winning the game. You have at least a bit of a coping mechanism to work with. But all things considered, right here, right now, once again, we're kind of going back into the system, this pattern of saying Fisher Tea Party, not on a great buy, but with the judge in hand, if you can kind of hold these closer angles, honestly, the defense has decided to make Thrifties a lot more doable just because of the case of if they don't check a singular corner, it can be donezo for everybody.
Keep in mind, this map is very similar in terms of these hallways to the map of Split. Very tight corridors. C Long is that way. C Hall stepping out into sight from garage is that way. The doorways into these angles to work with. Only mid is really the truly open. The sites themselves, but the same thing can be said for Split. The Hoosiers have keyed in on a lot of the problems that were plaguing them on that map against Fisher Tea Party. And Fisher Tea Party are, well, they're leading the edge here. It's turned back the other way. Be Smooth. It's in a really rough spot. KM Lord seemingly had the advantage and just waiting with that judge, but it falls apart. And a 1v1 from Ponage. They look the other way. How do they still get that kill? It doesn't matter. Ponage with 2.
Damage all over the
Damage to a
place.
3rd. But it's just Reese all by their lonesome. Has a sheriff. Turns the corner and enjoy.
Ooh.
A dangerous weapon in a 1v1 to utilize. But it works out nonetheless, and the Hoosiers are 1 round away from OT on the map of Haven against a very tough Fisher Tea Party roster who have dominated map 2 and really run away at the beginning of map 3. They've held on.
Yeah, just keep on chugging along. And even then, I mean, Fisher Tea Party, they know that thankfully they have a bye for this final round. No matter what, win or lose, they're going to keep things going. And this is the last round of regulation, whether they like it or not. So, I mean, every single ultimate you got, pop it and use it. That's going to be a Blade Storm. Use it like a shotgun, like a little backup shorty. Now, Hunter's Fury, try to get some preemptive information, or try just play it off the audibles to go ahead and stall out that spike. Fisher Tea Party had the advantage, I holistically believe, in a round like this, but it just comes down to whether or not they actually had the opportunity to use the advantage to its fullest extent, because we've seen way too many scenarios in this entire lobby, not just for Fisher Tea Party, but for the Hoosiers as well, of players just dropping dead when they could have made a much bigger impact and pressed a couple more buttons.
Simba lies and wait towards Cubby. You can tell the patience from Fisher Tea Party. Not even sure what information Reese got off of that. They're waiting for a shot instead of peeking it initially. Just barely have a tiny corner, making use of a solid 5% of their total screen capacity here. But it doesn't work out just yet. Hoosiers gave them no information, but the utility will give them enough to fall back. Reese will hold on to their life first and foremost, as Hoosiers have full control now over the site, and they can stack up on C-Long to use that Hunter's Fury. KM Lord tried the stall way too low with that Hunter's Fury themselves, and Fisher Tea Party in a really rough spot. Why is the Hunter's Fury pop so soon? The Hoosiers have burnt a huge part of their defensive load way too early and suppress. Blade Storm out, Recon Bolt up. You gotta spray down the diffuser. It's being defused. Fisher Tea Party just steal the most impossible rounds. The Hoosiers, how the heck does that get snuck through? What just happened here in the EDCC?
You let them win. I mean, you were fighting tooth and nail. Could have had that just down to go ahead and keep things elongating and know that, okay, we never have to worry about not having to buy again. And invest everything you got. But that Hunter's Fury, as soon as it came out, I wasn't biting my nails. I was biting my lip. I was clenching my fist, just like, why? Why so early? You didn't hear a tap. It was just in reaction to the Rolling Thunder. And even I thought that was a little bit early, but it's okay. Everything's in the moment. I understand. Players are probably screaming at each other. You got guys trying to backseat game when they're dead. Who knows? But it's just one of those points where it's like, you got to press buttons. You got to get him out. And I'll admit, I did say it. They at least got him out, thankfully. Otherwise, that's just not a whole bunch of wandering questions that are just complete theoreticals.
When the smoke goes down, when you have no known faculties, when you can't know what's going on that spike, you just hear the tap. Did they stick? Did they not? That's when the Hunter's Fury can be used. That's, in my mind, where the Hunter's Fury comes in, bar the final 15 seconds of the spike detonation in the first place. It's popped way too soon. Proactively, I'm not sure, didn't find the impact they were wanting. And the round didn't find the impact they were wanting. What a stink, what a stealth, what a steal coming out from Fisher Tea Party. that is an unbelievable round to come through. If you didn't notice, at the end of that round there, Dallas, 4-1. That was the player count between those two teams. The only one that was surviving from Fisher was the one on the spike and defusing. Yeah. That's 4 players that could be spraying down the plants. And enough about Fisher stealing it and the bad Hunter's Fury. Where's the sprays? Where's the fires coming out from Hoosier? You've got 30 bullets in each mag of those rifles you're bringing to the table, and none of you are spraying down that smoke at every single angle. Where's the ping coming out? Where did you plant it? Where's the information? Not enough, bar none. Bad call for the Hunter's Fury, but the rifle fire should have and could have saved the day, and it didn't happen. What a steal from Fisher.
I mean, it's also, deserved to a certain extent. Yeah. Not just in terms of the regard of them kind of bouncing back, but the split is where they really fought for it. Let's be real. Haven was a decider. It was a toss-up, but split was really where kind of things were handed to them. That's when the pressure was on to say, we don't have a map count at all. Things can close out for us. But that initial start, right after a map, that's where they started their comeback. And that's where they kind of earned it initially. It was with that 4-0, 3-0 start, those pistol rounds going their way just to a significant manner, just find themselves long strands over and over and over again of rounds. It's impressive. But, split, that's kind of Indiana's fault for letting that game slip through. If they found themselves at 11-13, or even they kind of kept it a lot closer, or found themselves those ones, it's those circumstances where you're saying we can kind of carry that over. We can go to Haven with that same regard, because we saw so many situations again where it was just these weird swings onto an operator where you kind of have an idea what's going on. And then even then there were other rounds where you see it's kind of like a flip-flop of saying some rounds we want to adjust to it and know it's going to be there. Sometimes we don't. We know a player's always going to be inside sewers. We know a player's always going to be kind of aggressing it towards that A manner. Why don't we just knock that player out and then go somewhere else? Instead, we seem kind of flexing towards C, courtyard, which was rarely used except for on eco rounds, which I want to say is a little bit odd, but you never know what's going to happen. You got to use all those to the full extent.
There's a lot there. You can digest and devolve and break down everything that happened in this game in a myopic scope. We're a little bit, well, you said we're not omnipotent, but we see all here in the booth. That's kind of luxury we have. We don't know all. That's why we don't make coaches. We make casters instead here. But there's a lot we can see that went wrong. And it's a lot of things that their coaches, Fisher has a great, program like we mentioned. They have a lot of coaching staff that can really help them out. Indiana's been really working on their program as well. They're going to have people that can help devolve what happened, what went wrong, what went right, what happened to make those things right. And these are all things that they're going to need a VOD review. That's something that is absolutely... you're gonna have to listen to us talking. I'm sorry to break it to you. It's needed. That's the one luxury of being on broadcast. You have a guaranteed set of 2 voices to give you a new opinion, usually terrible opinion, but a new opinion, and you get a great visual of what's going on here with our observer, Bolby. Big shout out to Bolby for letting the game be shown in a very spectacular way. But that is it for us. Also, shout out to our producer who has the actual show running. We couldn't do it without them. That is it for us here for the NECC today. We'll have more action coming up the rest of this week, so make sure you guys don't go anywhere for more CS2, which is starting up soon, Rocket League, R6, League of Legends, Overwatch 2, I think. Pretty much every esport that exists, the NECC is trying to dip their toes into it. But there's plenty more action the rest of the week. Make sure you guys don't go anywhere. We'll see you guys when the stream is getting started tomorrow.